There are places on this planet that defy everything we think we know about human history. Silent ruins buried beneath the earth, stones cut with impossible precision, artifacts that seem to whisper of civilizations far older or far stranger than the textbooks dare to admit. How did ancient builders, with no modern tools, carve megaliths so immense they challenge even today's technology? Who left behind symbols that appear to map the stars long before telescopes existed? And why do some discoveries, when unearthed, seem to vanish just as quickly, locked away in secrecy and doubt? Each relic tells a story, but some stories refuse to fit neatly into our timeline. They stand like ghosts in the sand, mocking our assumptions and daring us to look deeper. These are not myths. They are real places, real objects, and real questions that refuse to stay buried. So sit back, open your mind, and prepare to journey into the world of bizarre, unexplained archaeological mysteries that simply shouldn't exist. Hidden beneath the dust of centuries, in the heart of Jerusalem's ancient hills, something extraordinary was found. 2 small, rolled sheets of silver, blackened with age and fragile as ash. At first glance, they seemed unremarkable, no larger than a child's thumb. But within their faint engravings lay words older than any parchment, any codex, any Bible ever written. They would come to be known as the Silver Scrolls of Jerusalem, tiny relics that defied time itself. The year was 1979. Archaeologists excavating a series of ancient burial caves at Ketef Hinnom, just outside the old city walls, uncovered a cluster of limestone tombs dating to the First Temple period. Among the shattered pottery and human bones, they found 2 minuscule cylinders of beaten silver. They were so delicate that it took 3 years, 3 painstaking years, before conservators dared to unroll them. What emerged from those spirals of metal would rewrite part of biblical history. Etched in the ancient Hebrew script were words that seemed startlingly familiar. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. It was the priestly benediction, a passage still recited in Jewish, Christian, and even secular ceremonies today. But here it was preserved not on parchment nor papyrus, but on pure silver, dating back to the 7th century BCE. That made these scrolls the oldest surviving fragments of biblical text ever discovered, predating the Dead Sea Scrolls by more than 4 centuries. For biblical scholars, it was a revelation. Proof, they said, that portions of the Hebrew Bible existed in written form long before many skeptics had claimed. The text wasn't a late invention of exiled scribes. It was already part of Israel's living tradition, and yet the scrolls raised as many questions as they answered. Who had written them? Why were they buried in a tomb, objects meant to accompany the dead? And how had silver, a material prone to corrosion, survived 2.5 millennia beneath Jerusalem's shifting soil? Some researchers suggested the scrolls were amulets, protective charms worn by the living or placed with the dead to ensure divine favor in the afterlife. In ancient Near Eastern cultures, inscribed metals were believed to hold magical properties, the power of the written word made permanent in metal. Perhaps then, these were no ordinary texts, but spiritual technology, faith encoded in silver. Others took the mystery further. The precision of the etching, microscopic and consistent even along the narrowest folds, has puzzled metallurgists. How, with primitive tools, did ancient artisans engrave sacred text so finely without tearing the metal? Were there lost methods of craftsmanship, techniques or instruments we have yet to rediscover? Still, the mystery does not end with craftsmanship. Some have noted peculiarities in the Hebrew script, subtle variations from other inscriptions of the time. Could these reflect a regional dialect, a secret priestly code, or an older form of the language, preserved only by a select few? A handful of linguists have even speculated that the script hints at traditions far older than the First Temple period, echoes of an earlier, forgotten phase of Israelite religion. Then there are those who look beyond theology and language altogether. To them, the silver scrolls represent not just a religious artifact, but a message, an intentional preservation of something deemed sacred enough to withstand millennia. Why silver? Why such small, easily lost objects? Perhaps the material was chosen for its incorruptibility, its mirror-like purity, a fitting vessel for divine words. Perhaps the scrolls were part of a larger set, a lost archive of inscribed metal texts buried in secret across the ancient city. Indeed, whispers of other metallic inscriptions have surfaced in scattered archaeological records, bronze and gold sheets inscribed with blessings, curses, and covenants. Most are fragmentary, their origins uncertain. Could the silver scrolls be the survivors of a broader, hidden practice, one that sought to make faith indestructible? There are even more speculative theories, quietly discussed, never proven. Some fringe historians suggest that the scroll's discovery site, Ketef Hinnom, may align with older sacred geography, predating the temple itself. Could the tombs have been constructed upon an earlier holy site, one whose traditions were later absorbed into Israelite worship? If so, the silver scrolls might not only record a blessing, they might preserve a remnant of an older syncretic faith, a bridge between ancient Canaanite rites and early monotheism. Mainstream archaeology, of course, remains cautious. Most scholars see the scrolls as part of an evolving religious culture, a tangible link between ancient prayer and the written word. And yet, even they admit, the odds of such delicate objects surviving intact, the words still legible, borders on miraculous. When the scrolls were finally displayed in Jerusalem, encased in glass and lit with pale, reverent light, visitors were struck by their simplicity. Two small spirals of dull gray metal, resting silently, holding within them one of humanity's oldest invocations of hope and protection. But for those who lingered, a quiet question remained. Why were these particular words, the blessing of divine favor and light, chosen to be sealed in silver and hidden with the dead? Were they meant to comfort one soul, or to safeguard an entire people? No one can say for certain. The silver scrolls endure as both artifact and enigma, a whisper from a civilization that mastered the art of permanence, even in the face of decay. They remind us that history is not only what we uncover, but what still hides just beneath the surface, waiting, patiently, to be found. And somewhere, deep below Jerusalem's ancient stones, perhaps other messages remain, silent, waiting for the light once more. And as we leave behind the silent silver spirals of the scrolls and shift our gaze across the continent, we arrive at a starkly different landscape, a volcanic hilltop in western Hungary, where a mystery of metal rests quietly in the earth. Rising above the green slopes of vineyards and the broad basin of the Markel River, Somló Hill presents a silhouette that is both unassuming and enigmatic. The plateau, an extinct volcanic butte, stands some 430 meters above sea level, an elevated vantage that must have offered ancient observers a sweeping view of the surrounding land. On this vantage, beneath centuries of soil and vegetation, lie buried dozens, hundreds of metal objects, deliberately deposited by hands we can no longer name. In 2023, archaeologists began a systematic survey of the hill, combining field walking, metal detection, and LiDAR scanning to map terrain that modern quarrying had left largely undisturbed. Within a year, they recorded more than 300 metal artifacts and ultimately identified 6 distinct hoards, clusters of metal objects deposited long ago, spanning the late Bronze Age and the early Iron Age. What makes this discovery compelling, what makes it whisper its questions, is not just the quantity of metal, but the nature of the finds. Among the objects were bracelets, spearheads, bronze ingots, and casting waste, droplets and jets of metal that betray the traces of a workshop. One of the hoards was sealed inside a ceramic vessel, metal intentionally buried, wrapped in clay, hidden in the ground. Here then we have a hill, once inhabited or used from perhaps the 13th century BCE into the 6th century BCE, where metal was worked, objects were made, and some objects were deliberately laid to rest. Yet, we do not fully understand who placed them there, why, or under what rules. Archaeologists interpret these finds as evidence that Somló Hill may have served as a seat of power or production, an elite center where metalworking was carried out and metal deposits made as markers of status, craft, or ritual. The presence of casting waste and ingots suggests local manufacture rather than mere importation. The hilltop may have hosted actual bronze workshops, even if their remains are not yet fully uncovered. The carefully deposited hoards, especially those in ceramic vessels, point to intention, not accident. Perhaps offerings, perhaps stored wealth, perhaps ritual deposits tied to cycles of production or display. This interpretation frames Somló Hill as an archaeological snapshot of a society in transition, between the late Bronze Age and the early Iron Age, between production and deposition, between visible power and hidden deposit. The discovery helps to fill a gap in our knowledge of the region. Western Hungary was less understood in this period than other zones of Europe. Even as the mainstream narrative takes shape, the site raises uncomfortable and intriguing questions. What exactly was the purpose of burying the metal? Were these hoards hidden for safekeeping, as people might hide wealth in times of threat? Or were they ritual deposits meant as offerings to unseen powers, marking the end of a cycle of use or the transition of a community? Why Somló Hill? Its elevated position is strategic, and its volcanic geology may have made it naturally durable, isolated, and imposing. But why deposit objects here rather than bury them near dwellings, workshops, or everyday places? And how did the deposition practices persist across centuries of change? If the same spot was used for hoarding from the 13th century BCE into the 6th century BCE, what continuity of tradition, belief, or power underlies that sequence? Why, too, do the objects include such a range of material? Finished jewelry, weapon parts, ingots, casting debris, animal tusks, amber beads, and even fabric or leather remnants. The presence of tusks and beads suggests status display. The presence of casting waste suggests industry. The vessel burial suggests ritual. How were all these threads part of one fabric of society? And then there is the identity problem. We know the time period, the material culture to some extent, but we do not know precisely who these people were, what language they spoke, what social structures they maintained, or how their elites asserted power. Beyond these grounded uncertainties, more speculative interpretations beckon. Might Somló Hill represent not just a workshop and elite settlement, but a deliberately chosen sacred or liminal space, where metal, with its reflectivity and permanence, was used for ritual statements as much as for tools? The sealed hoards suggest a kind of deposit that is more than simple storage, a statement of closure, of transition, of ceremony. Could the metal production and deposition reflect a hierarchy of power that used metal not only as raw material but as currency of symbolism, bronze objects as markers of identity, allegiance, craft mastery, or ritual passage? The fact that the hoards span a long period suggests continuity of tradition, a memory of deposit practices passed across generations, even as cultures shifted. Another possibility: was Somló Hill part of wider trade and exchange networks that we only have glimpses of? The combination of jewelry, casting waste, and luxury beads points to a community plugged into broader currents of material flow, not entirely isolated. If so, then the hill may have functioned as a regional hub, both industrial and ritual, bridging local production and supra-regional connections. Finally, there's the notion that these hoards represent not just deposit, but intentional obliteration or closure. When a hoard is buried and never reclaimed, is it because the community left, destroyed, disrupted, or transformed? Does the act of burial mark an end rather than a pause? And if so, what event or process caused such a deliberate finish to use? The transition from bronze to iron, the movement of peoples, social upheaval, these might all be woven into the act of deposition on Somló. As day gives way to dusk and the vineyards around Somló are bathed in golden light, one can imagine the ancient hilltop, the figures who ascended it, who hammered bronze, baked vessels, buried objects beneath the surface, maybe watched the landscape wide below them. We can imagine the vessels of ceramic enclosing bronze lumps beneath the soil, the ritual gestures, the quiet goodbye of deposit. And we can imagine the long centuries in which the hill lay undisturbed, until modern metal detectors and LiDAR scans awaken those silent deposits once more. Yet in all of this, we arrive at a key conclusion. The story of Somló Hill is still incomplete. We know enough to be astonished, not enough to be certain. The 6 hoards and hundreds of artifacts open windows, but the view beyond is hazy. Why were those objects buried? What social, ritual, or economic systems governed that deposition? What continuity persisted across the centuries? And what else, still unseen, lies undiscovered beneath the plateau, waiting for the next survey, the next dig, the next question? As we proceed into the next chapter of our journey through anomalies and mysteries, remember, this is not a closed case. The hilltop sits in silence, the metal in earth, the question still alive. As the quiet mystery of Somló Hill fades from view, with its buried hoards and the echoes of ancient metallurgists, our journey shifts across continents and centuries into the arid deserts of the American Southwest. Here, among the mesas and canyons of what is now central Arizona, lies a structure that has captivated archaeologists and travelers alike for over a century, the Casa Grande ruins, and within them, an enigma that refuses to be fully understood. Rising abruptly from the Sonoran desert floor, the Casa Grande, a massive 4-story adobe structure, dominates the surrounding landscape. Its walls, now weathered and fragile, were originally coated in a thick layer of clay plaster, and still today, one can see traces of the intricate geometric patterns that once adorned its surfaces. The building's sheer scale is astonishing. At nearly 60 feet tall, with rooms stacked vertically and small window openings positioned with precision, it is one of the most imposing pre-Columbian structures in North America. The size alone provokes questions. How did the Hohokam, a culture known for extensive canal networks but lacking metal tools and draft animals, construct such a massive edifice with such accuracy and resilience? Archaeologists date Casa Grande to somewhere between 1350 and 1450 CE, placing it in the late Hohokam period. Yet even as its general timeline is understood, the purpose of the central building, the so-called Great House, remains debated. Many scholars suggest it was ceremonial, a communal gathering place, or perhaps an astronomical observatory. Some evidence supports this. Certain windows align with solar and lunar events, casting light and shadow in ways that mark the solstices. The roof openings, once intact, may have served as ventilation, or perhaps as skylights for ritual observation. But certainty is elusive. The construction itself invites further questions. Made from caliche clay, a mixture of soil, water, and desert minerals, the building's walls were thick and meticulously layered. Experts have marveled at the structural techniques employed to achieve height and stability in a material that tends to erode under wind and rain. How did the builders achieve such precision without cranes, pulleys, or even metal nails? And why select this particular site, a broad, relatively flat expanse in a desert valley, rather than the more defensible hilltops nearby? Was it proximity to water, centrality for the Hohokam, or an unseen spiritual significance? Then there are the anomalies. The Casa Grande ruins site includes not only the Great House, but smaller surrounding dwellings and pit structures, creating a complex that implies careful urban planning. Yet the scale of the central building dwarfs its neighbors, suggesting a special function, perhaps reserved for elites, priests, or those with specific ceremonial roles. The absence of definitive household artifacts within the Great House, tools, domestic ceramics, hearths, further distances it from ordinary habitation, deepening the sense of purposeful mystery. Speculative interpretations have emerged over time. Could the structure have served as a celestial observatory? Some researchers point to alignments with the summer and winter solstices and note the building's windows framing the rising and setting sun during key times of the year. Others suggest it may have functioned as a sacred space, where the movements of the sun, moon, and stars were integrated into Hohokam religious life. Yet no written records exist, and no oral traditions survived the centuries that could confirm these theories. The very absence of textual evidence leaves the building in a silent dialogue with the desert. Beyond the astronomical, other mysteries arise from the building's rapid deterioration. Despite the ingenuity of its construction, the Great House was abandoned after only a few decades of use, and its walls began crumbling within a generation. Was this due to environmental shifts, social upheaval, or ritual decommissioning? Did the Hohokam intentionally desert the structure, or was it abandoned due to unforeseen calamity? Even today, conservationists work tirelessly to stabilize what remains, yet erosion and human impact continue to threaten the integrity of the site. Some scholars have noted that the Great House seems to share certain characteristics with structures hundreds of miles away in Mesoamerica and the American Southwest. Could there have been broader influences or even knowledge transfer across vast distances? Did the Hohokam independently develop these architectural solutions, or were they part of a wider, interconnected world of pre-Columbian builders? Despite decades of research, the Casa Grande remains an enigmatic symbol of ingenuity and unanswered questions. Walking through the ruins, one can sense the careful deliberation in every corner, the thought behind each wall, and the deliberate shaping of space to achieve purposes we can only speculate about. Was it a temple, an astronomical tool, a meeting place, or all of these at once? And if it was abandoned, what prompted the Hohokam to leave such an impressive structure unfinished, allowing the desert winds and centuries to reclaim it? Perhaps the greatest mystery is not found in the bricks or the plaster, but in what has been lost, the knowledge, traditions, and daily lives that once animated this monumental building. Archaeology gives us fragments, walls, artifacts, alignment studies, but the human experience, the intentions behind the construction, remain tantalizingly out of reach. As the sun sets over the Sonoran Desert, casting long shadows across the ruins, the Great House stands quietly, a sentinel of the past, imposing yet inscrutable. It challenges our understanding of pre-Columbian architecture, of human ambition, and of the ways ancient societies organized their most sacred spaces. We are left with questions that reach beyond the structure itself. Why build so high, with such precision, without leaving a traceable record of its use? Why abandon it after only a brief period? And how much knowledge about astronomy, ritual, and social organization has vanished with time, leaving only the silent walls as testimony? The Casa Grande ruins, in their quiet majesty, remind us that some mysteries persist, not because we lack curiosity, but because some answers are meant to linger, half buried in sand, wind, and memory. They invite us to wonder, to explore, and to acknowledge that even in a well-studied landscape, the past can still hold secrets that refuse to be fully revealed. As the sun sets over the silent adobe walls of Casa Grande, our journey moves from the arid deserts of the American Southwest to the damp, mist-shrouded wetlands of Western Europe, a landscape where water preserves what time and soil often erase. Here, in the peat bogs of Ireland, lies a human enigma that has puzzled archaeologists and historians for decades, the bog body known as Gallagh Man. Unlike stone ruins or buried metal hoards, the peat bogs act as a natural time capsule, preserving the human form in eerie, almost lifelike detail. Gallagh Man was discovered in 1821 in County Mayo, lying face down in a shallow pool of dark, tannin-stained water. The cold, acidic peat had preserved his skin, hair, and even nails with startling fidelity. At first glance, he appears peaceful, almost asleep, yet a closer examination reveals the marks of a violent death. Evidence suggests blunt force trauma to the head, strangulation, and stabbing, a combination that hints at ritualized execution rather than ordinary murder. Radiocarbon dating places him in the Iron Age, around 200 BCE, a time when Celtic tribes dominated this landscape and pagan ritual practices were integral to their communities. Scholars generally interpret Gallagh Man as a victim of ritual sacrifice, part of a broader phenomenon of bog bodies found throughout northern Europe. The preservation of the body, coupled with deliberate placement in a liminal wetland, a place between land and water, supports the theory that he was offered to deities or spirits, a symbolic act intended to ensure fertility, favor, or protection for the community. His clothing, sparse as it was, along with the careful positioning, suggests intention rather than accident. Yet even within these frameworks, questions linger. Why would someone endure such a calculated, agonizing death for the sake of ritual? What was the significance of the bog itself? Peatlands were neither convenient nor hospitable. They were inhospitable, treacherous landscapes. Was the act meant to bind the spiritual and natural worlds together? Was it a punishment, a warning, or an offering? The combination of injuries complicates the picture. Unlike other bog bodies, which often show singular causes of death, Gallagh Man bears multiple marks of violence, perhaps an indication of a ceremonial execution, but to what end? Beyond the physical evidence, there is the unsettling intimacy that the preservation allows. Gallagh Man's hair, once reddish-brown, and the leathery texture of his skin create a connection across millennia. One can almost imagine him standing in a sunlit field, unaware of the fate that awaited him. This intimacy makes the mystery more poignant, yet also more frustrating. It is as though the bog itself is holding its secrets tightly, offering fragments of the story while keeping the whole just out of reach. Speculative theories abound. Some researchers have suggested that bog bodies like Gallagh Man may have served as political sacrifices, chosen for their societal position. Chieftains, warriors, or even offenders whose deaths reinforced social order. Others propose a cosmic dimension, the bog as a conduit between worlds, where the act of killing, preservation, and placement ensured communication with deities or ancestors. The multiplicity of wounds might indicate a layered ritual, each injury symbolizing a specific offering or appeasement. Yet another layer of mystery comes from the physiological preservation. The peat bog's chemical properties have maintained organs, skin, and even stomach contents, providing a glimpse into diet, health, and environment. Gallagh Man's final meal, revealed through careful analysis, is a snapshot of Iron Age life. Simple, earthy, and surprisingly nutritious. It is a moment of ordinary human existence captured in extraordinary circumstances, a life abruptly halted yet meticulously documented by nature itself. The spatial context also adds questions. Gallagh Man was not discovered in isolation. Peat bogs in Ireland and Denmark have yielded dozens of similar bodies, many in similar states of violent death and ritual deposition. Was this site part of a network of sacred bogs? Did communities follow long-established traditions, choosing specific wetlands for specific ceremonies? Or is the placement more practical, taking advantage of the bog's preservative qualities? Every possibility seems plausible, yet none can be confirmed. Even more puzzling are the cultural and symbolic implications. Iron Age Celtic societies left no written records. The acts that created Gallagh man's final moments are recorded only in the silent witness of his body and the landscape around him. What can we infer about belief, morality, and social hierarchy from these fragments? How did the community understand the intersection of life, death, and ritual? And perhaps most hauntingly, how did they perceive Gallagh man himself? Hero, criminal, offering, or messenger? As modern visitors peer into the pools where Gallagh man rested, the still waters reflect more than sky. They reflect our own fascination with the unknown. The bog preserves, yet it conceals. It tells us he existed, that he died, that his death was deliberate and laden with meaning, but it offers no name, no voice, no definitive answer. Every discovery raises new questions, and every theory remains provisional. The Gallagh man reminds us that human history is not always linear, not always clear. There are rituals, customs, and acts whose meanings elude even the most careful scholarship. And sometimes the landscape itself becomes a participant in the story, preserving in uncanny detail what humans leave behind, while leaving the why suspended in shadow. Standing beside the peat, imagining the body lying in quiet permanence for more than 2 millennia, one cannot help but ask, what did the people of that time hope to accomplish through this act? Was it devotion, punishment, protection, or a combination beyond our comprehension? And how many other secrets lie in bogs across Europe, waiting silently for discovery, holding answers we may never fully unlock? Gallagh man endures as a bridge between past and present, a preserved witness to ritual, belief, and human complexity. His body, like the artifacts and structures we have explored before, challenges assumptions, invites speculation, and reminds us that some mysteries remain deliberately hauntingly unsolved. As the waters of the Irish bogs settle from our contemplation of Gallagh man, our journey now takes us to the fertile plains and rolling hills of the Central Balkans, to a site whose artifacts whisper across 6 millennia of human history. Here, in what is today Serbia, lies Vinca, an ancient settlement along the Danube River, home to a culture that flourished between 5,700 and 4,500 BCE, leaving behind an enigmatic legacy that continues to puzzle archaeologists, the Vinca figurines. At first glance, these small clay sculptures appear deceptively simple, human or humanoid forms, often stylized, rarely taller than a handspan, with abstract facial features and exaggerated limbs. Some are squat and angular, others rounded, with lines etched to suggest clothing, jewelry, or tattoos. Their surfaces, hardened by firing, have survived millennia in remarkably good condition. Yet their simplicity belies a profound mystery. These figurines, scattered across the settlement and its outlying areas, were not casual playthings or decorative ornaments. They seem to carry symbolic weight, though the exact meaning remains elusive. Vinca was a hub of early European innovation. Its inhabitants produced some of the earliest examples of metallurgy in the region, cultivated crops, raised domesticated animals, and created complex ceramics. Amidst this technological and social advancement, the figurines emerge as artifacts of a different order. Were they religious icons, representations of fertility, ancestral effigies, or teaching tools? The fact that they are often found in specific locations, beneath floors, in refuse pits, or near hearths, suggests intentional placement, a deliberate dialogue between the figurines and the spaces they occupied. Some of the most striking Vinca figurines bear features that suggest more than mere decoration. Triangular eyes, intricate markings, and geometric patterns hint at symbolic or ritual meaning. In some cases, their forms are abstract to the point of ambiguity, leaving us to question whether they represent human figures at all, or perhaps deities, spirits, or metaphysical concepts. The careful attention to proportion and detail, despite the absence of written language, speaks to a cognitive and cultural sophistication that challenges simple explanations. Mainstream scholarship generally interprets these figurines as part of ritual practice or domestic religion. Fertility seems a likely theme, given the abundance of female forms with emphasized reproductive features. But the diversity of shapes and markings complicates the picture. Some figurines are male, some androgynous, some almost grotesque in their distortion. Were they amulets, pedagogical tools, or symbolic proxies in ceremonial acts? Were they objects of veneration, or instruments to mediate unseen forces? The answers remain tantalizingly out of reach. Then there's the question of their production. The clay used for the Vinca figurines was often local, yet fired at a temperature and with a consistency that suggests experimentation and skill. The same community was capable of producing intricate pottery, decorated with spirals and symbols that may constitute an early proto-writing system. Could the figurines themselves encode information, a symbolic language lost to time? Some researchers have speculated that certain marks on the figurines resemble abstract script, a visual shorthand with meanings we may never decode. The placement of figurines adds another layer of intrigue. Many were buried intentionally in ritual contexts, suggesting that they were not simply utilitarian objects but part of a system of beliefs. Others were broken deliberately before deposition, a practice that seems to mirror ritual killing of objects, a phenomenon seen in other prehistoric cultures. Did this destruction symbolize transformation, release, or appeasement? Or was it a method of communicating with the divine, a way of sending messages into realms beyond human perception? Vinca itself was a network of interconnected settlements, spanning hundreds of square kilometers along the Danube and its tributaries. Figurines have been discovered throughout this region, not just at the central site. This broad distribution hints at shared cultural norms, but also raises questions about variation. Why do some figurines follow strict geometric conventions while others are almost surreal in form? Was there regional specialization, artistic schools, or differing ritual practices within the same overarching culture? Speculative theories extend even further. Some have suggested that the figurines may have functioned as mnemonic devices, aiding in the transmission of stories, genealogies, or cosmological knowledge across generations. Others see them as evidence of shamanic practice, with the abstract forms representing visions or entities encountered in altered states of consciousness. Could these figurines, small and silent as they are, encode knowledge of a worldview that predates written history by millennia? What is undeniable is the enduring mystery of the human connection they evoke. Holding a Vinca figurine, or imagining its original placement in a household or shrine, forces us to confront the thought processes of a people so distant from us in time, yet intimately human in their creativity. Each curve, each line etched into the clay, is a message across ages, a puzzle fragment of a culture whose intellectual and spiritual life we can only partially reconstruct. Yet, for all the analysis and theorizing, the Vinca figurines continue to defy certainty. Were they sacred, educational, or decorative? Were they used daily, occasionally, or solely in rites of passage? How did they fit into the rhythm of Vinca life, into birth, death, cultivation, and community? And most provocatively, what knowledge, ritual, or belief has been irretrievably lost, leaving only these silent, enigmatic forms as evidence? Walking through the archaeological layers of Vinca, imagining the hands that shaped these figures, the eyes that gazed upon them, one is struck by the deliberate ambiguity of their design. They are at once intimate and alien, familiar and unfathomable, bridging the known and the unknowable. The Vinca figurines endure as an invitation to wonder, to speculate, and to confront the limits of our understanding of the human past. They remind us that, even in the most studied settlements, with thousands of artifacts catalogued and analyzed, there remain objects whose purpose and meaning resist explanation, leaving us with questions that echo across 6,000 years. What thoughts, beliefs, and experiences did these figurines encapsulate? And how much more remains hidden, waiting for discovery, interpretation, or the simple grace of time to reveal another piece of this enduring human puzzle? As we leave behind the enigmatic Vinca figurines with their silent testimony to early European belief and artistry, our journey now takes us across continents and into the arid highlands of southern Peru, where the desert stretches in ochre waves toward the horizon, and ancient stones whisper of a story that has confounded archaeologists and travelers for decades. Here lies the anomaly known as the Ica Stones. Scattered across the arid valleys near the town of Ica, thousands of smooth, flat stones of varying sizes bear intricate carvings, etched deep into their surfaces. At first glance, many appear to depict ordinary scenes: farmers tilling fields, hunters tracking game, and daily rituals of life. Yet a closer inspection reveals imagery that is profoundly unexpected. The stones portray sophisticated surgeries, complex astronomical calculations, and, most controversially, creatures and humans interacting with dinosaurs, prehistoric animals that mainstream science insists were extinct millions of years before humans walked the earth. The carvings are precise, detailed, and unnervingly consistent, suggesting that the artisans who created them were keen observers of anatomy, mechanics, and natural history. The stones first drew widespread attention in the 1960s, when Dr. Javier Cabrera, a Peruvian physician with a fascination for archaeology, began collecting them from local farmers. Cabrera himself amassed a library of over 11,000 stones, cataloging them according to subject matter and apparent chronology. At the time, many scholars were skeptical. Some dismissed the stones as modern forgeries, the product of local farmers seeking to sell curiosities to tourists. Others, however, recognized something more curious. The carving techniques and patina on many stones suggested significant age, as mineral deposits had formed within the incisions over decades, if not centuries. The mainstream interpretation remains cautious. Archaeologists generally regard the stones as recent creations with limited historical value. The depictions of dinosaurs and anachronistic technologies are taken as evidence of imagination, not historical record. Yet even within this framework, the sheer number of stones, the variety of scenes, and the precision of the carvings defy easy dismissal. Some stones show detailed surgical procedures, brain surgery, cataract removal, limb amputation, that mirror techniques developed thousands of years later. Others depict astronomical diagrams that align with celestial bodies in ways that suggest careful observation and knowledge of the heavens. This tension between skepticism and intrigue fuels the mystery. How did artisans create carvings with such anatomical and mechanical accuracy? Were they purely imaginative, or do the stones encode knowledge lost to time? Could some depict historical events, biological phenomena, or technological concepts now forgotten? Adding to the enigma is the cultural context. The Ica region was home to multiple pre-Columbian civilizations, including the Nazca, known for their geoglyphs and complex understanding of astronomy. Could the Ica stones be a remnant of advanced knowledge preserved in stone rather than written language? Some researchers speculate that the stones may have been used as teaching tools or ceremonial objects, designed to transmit knowledge across generations. Others propose that they were intended as moral or cosmological lessons, visual narratives linking humans, animals, and the natural order. The stones also raise questions about the origins of human knowledge itself. If some carvings accurately depict extinct creatures or advanced medical techniques, could these represent observations of a civilization whose history predates conventional timelines? Or are they imaginative syntheses inspired by fossils, oral traditions, or a combination of both? And if so, why would such images appear consistently across thousands of stones, often carved with remarkable stylistic uniformity? The more speculative theories are even more provocative. Some have suggested that the stones are evidence of human-dinosaur coexistence, implying that our understanding of prehistoric timelines is incomplete. Others see them as remnants of a lost civilization, one capable of advanced medicine, astronomy, and possibly even interaction with species thought long extinct. There are also suggestions that the carvings represent visions, shamanic, spiritual, or symbolic depictions of a world beyond ordinary perception. In all these possibilities, the Ica stones challenge assumptions about history, biology, and human ingenuity. One cannot discuss the Ica stones without acknowledging the controversy surrounding them. Skeptics point to modern fabrication, pointing out that local artisans have admitted to creating some stones for sale. Yet, even if some were forged, the sheer volume, diversity, and consistency of the collection complicates any simple explanation. Mineral analysis, patina formation, and stylistic examination suggest that at least some stones cannot easily be dismissed as modern fakes. The boundary between forgery, historical artifact, and enigmatic record becomes blurred, leaving the stones in a liminal space between fact and speculation. Walking among these carved stones, or even imagining them spread across the desert floor, it is easy to sense the deliberate intent behind each figure. The human forms, the intricate tools, the detailed flora and fauna, all speak of observation, intention, and perhaps the desire to record knowledge for those who might come after. And yet, without context, the stones remain mute. We cannot ask the hands that carved them why they chose these scenes, or what truths they intended to convey. The Ica stones remind us that human history may be more layered, more complex, and more enigmatic than conventional timelines suggest. They are at once a challenge and an invitation. A challenge to accepted narratives of prehistoric life and human development, and an invitation to look closer, to question, and to explore what knowledge may have been lost or hidden over millennia. As the desert winds stir the sands around Ica, the stones lie silently, their carvings catching the light, their stories half revealed, half concealed. They are witnesses to human curiosity, craftsmanship, and perhaps to mysteries we are only beginning to comprehend. What truths might these stones hold, buried in plain sight, waiting for us to decipher? And how many other fragments of lost knowledge lie scattered across the earth, awaiting the careful eye, the patient mind, and the willingness to see beyond the ordinary? The Ica stones endure as a puzzle, a dialogue across time between the known and the unknown. And as we continue this exploration of the bizarre and unexplained, they remind us that history is never fixed, and that some mysteries exist precisely because they challenge our understanding, inviting us to wonder what else might still lie hidden in the shadows of the past. As the copper glow of the Qumran desert fades from view, and the enigmatic treasures of the copper scroll linger in our imagination, our journey returns once more to the ancient city of Jerusalem, a city layered with millennia of history, where every stone seems to whisper stories of power, conquest, and secrets buried deep beneath the surface. Among these layers lies one of the city's most elusive mysteries, the Acra fort, a hidden stronghold whose remnants have defied historians and archaeologists alike. Perched in the lower part of the city, overlooking the Temple Mount, the Acra was constructed during the Hellenistic period, around 168 BCE, under the orders of Antiochus IV Epiphanes. Historical texts describe it as a heavily fortified citadel designed to control Jerusalem, monitor the Jewish population, and house a permanent garrison loyal to the Seleucid regime. Its strategic location offered sweeping views of the city's slopes and the surrounding valleys, giving its occupants both advantage and authority. And yet, for centuries, the precise footprint of the Acra, its walls, chambers, and subterranean passages, remained shrouded in uncertainty, obscured by time, urban expansion, and deliberate destruction. Ancient sources recount dramatic episodes. The Acra was stormed, partially destroyed, rebuilt, and ultimately leveled during the Maccabean Revolt. The fort appears repeatedly in texts by Josephus and other chroniclers, emphasizing its role as both a military hub and a symbol of foreign domination. Yet archaeology has struggled to confirm these descriptions. While excavations in the city of David and surrounding areas have uncovered walls, fortifications, and artifacts that may belong to the Acra, no definitive structure has been conclusively identified as the citadel itself. This disconnect between textual accounts and material evidence fuels the mystery. What makes the Acra particularly intriguing is the suggestion that much of it was deliberately concealed or repurposed over centuries. Some scholars propose that the fort's builders may have constructed subterranean chambers and hidden tunnels, allowing soldiers to move unseen and maintain control over the city. Others suggest that debris from its destruction may have been intentionally used to obscure its remains, erasing the fort from view while leaving tantalizing hints in the archaeological record. If true, the Acra was not only a fortress, but a labyrinthine enigma, designed to project power while hiding its own secrets. Even the artifacts associated with the Acra raise compelling questions. Excavations have revealed coins, pottery, weapons, and personal items that date to the Hellenistic period, some bearing marks of military or administrative function. Yet their distribution is patchy, leading researchers to ask, did these objects represent a sprawling complex whose full layout is yet undiscovered, or are they remnants of smaller outposts and garrisons scattered across the lower city? The absence of a clearly identifiable central structure leaves the imagination open to possibilities. Vaulted halls, underground chambers, and reinforced walls may lie hidden beneath modern streets, waiting to be unearthed. Speculation has also turned to the Acra's potential role beyond mere military dominance. Could it have served as a political center, a place where Seleucid officials administered the city while exerting cultural influence? Did its walls witness clandestine meetings, negotiations, and the complex interplay between occupying forces and the local population? The fort's very obscurity suggests intentional secrecy, a deliberate design to exert control while leaving few clues for future generations. Even more provocative theories hint at the fort's symbolic and ritual significance. Some historians suggest that the Acra was deliberately positioned to dominate the Temple Mount, representing not only political and military power, but also the projection of cultural and religious authority. Its destruction, then, may have been both practical and symbolic. The Maccabees' leveling of the Acra would not only remove a physical threat, but also erase the imprint of foreign dominance from the sacred landscape. Modern archaeology has advanced our understanding, yet the picture remains incomplete. LiDAR surveys, careful stratigraphic excavations, and the analysis of displaced stones and pottery fragments have all offered tantalizing glimpses of walls and chambers that may belong to the Acra. Yet the citadel continues to elude definitive identification. Some scholars propose that portions of the Acra lie beneath current residential and commercial structures, inaccessible to excavation. Others suggest that natural erosion, construction, and centuries of urban development have obliterated much of the evidence. The Acra fort invites reflection on the fragility of memory and the impermanence of human constructs. Even a fortress designed to command and intimidate can vanish from the surface, leaving behind only hints and fragments. The fort's absence challenges archaeologists to reconcile text with terrain, narrative with material evidence, and to imagine a complex built environment that may forever remain partially hidden. Walking through the City of David today, it is possible to trace imagined lines of walls, corridors, and chambers, to picture the soldiers moving silently through tunnels, the watchmen scanning the slopes for signs of rebellion, the fortress looming over the temple precincts like a shadow of authority. And yet, for all our reconstructions, the Acra's true form and full story remain elusive, a reminder that even in one of history's most studied cities, secrets endure. The mystery of the Acra fort endures because it sits at the intersection of history, archaeology, and human imagination. Was it purely a military installation, or did it serve as a political, cultural, and symbolic tool? Were its tunnels and chambers practical, ceremonial, or both? And crucially, how much of it remains hidden beneath the streets and stones of modern Jerusalem, waiting for the patient hand of discovery? As the sun casts long shadows over the ancient city, we are left with the Acra as both historical reality and enigmatic puzzle. Its stones, whether visible or buried, its corridors, whether mapped or lost, remind us that power can be fleeting, memory selective, and that the past often guards its deepest secrets closely. The Acra fort, elusive and compelling, beckons us to continue looking, questioning, and imagining the stories that remain buried beneath the layers of time. As the ancient stones and hidden corridors of Jerusalem's Acra fade into memory, our journey now shifts thousands of miles eastward into the misty, rugged landscapes of the Himalayas. In the shadow of towering peaks and verdant valleys, amid monasteries and remote villages, lies an object that has quietly puzzled archaeologists and historians alike. The Lolladoff plate, a small enigmatic artifact whose origins and meaning remain shrouded in mystery. Discovered in the early 20th century near a remote settlement in Nepal, the Lolladoff plate is a thin, circular disc made of an unknown metal alloy, remarkably resistant to corrosion despite centuries in a humid, mountainous environment. Its surface is etched with intricate geometric patterns, concentric circles, and symbols that defy easy classification. At first glance, it resembles ceremonial or decorative craftwork, yet a closer inspection reveals a level of precision that seems almost incongruous with the historical period and the known metallurgical capabilities of the region. The etchings are neither purely ornamental nor entirely abstract. They hint at a sophisticated understanding of geometry, proportion, and perhaps symbolic language. Initial examinations suggested that the plate was associated with ritual practice, possibly connected to local shamanic traditions or Buddhist ceremonial rites. Nepal, with its centuries-long history of spiritual practice and artistic expression, provides fertile ground for artifacts of ritual significance. Yet the Lolladoff plate stands apart. It does not resemble typical ritual objects from Himalayan traditions. Its composition, its symbology, and the meticulous craftsmanship raise questions about the origin and purpose of the disc. Was it a local creation, or could it have been brought from a distant culture, carrying knowledge and meaning that had crossed mountains and generations? The precision of the etchings is especially striking. Lines converge and spiral with exacting regularity, some forming what appear to be astronomical diagrams or complex calendrical markers. Could the Lolladoff plate have been used to track celestial events or to map seasonal cycles for agricultural or religious purposes? Scholars have debated these possibilities, noting the alignment of certain symbols with constellations or solstitial markers, yet no consensus has emerged. The patterns are too intricate to dismiss as decorative alone, yet without corroborating textual evidence, their meaning remains speculative. Mainstream interpretations lean toward ritual and symbolic explanation, situating the plate within the spiritual and artistic milieu of Himalayan societies. Yet anomalies persist. The metal alloy itself does not match typical local sources, suggesting either advanced metallurgical knowledge or trade networks that extended far beyond the immediate region. Certain symbols appear strikingly similar to motifs found in distant ancient cultures, raising the question, was the plate a singular product of local artisans, or a vestige of broader, interconnected knowledge systems that spanned Asia? Further adding to the intrigue is the plate's discovery context. Found buried in a shallow cave alongside fragments of pottery and animal remains, the object was positioned with care, almost as if it had been placed deliberately rather than lost. Archaeologists speculated that the cave may have served as a ritual site or a hidden repository for sacred objects. The act of burying such a carefully crafted disc suggests an intention that goes beyond convenience. It was preserved perhaps to safeguard knowledge, protect a sacred tool, or conceal an item of great significance. Speculative theories have flourished in response to the plate's enigmas. Some suggest that the Lolladoff plate encodes knowledge of astronomy, mathematics, or cosmology that has since been lost to time. Others propose it represents a symbolic bridge between spiritual and empirical understanding, a tangible expression of abstract thought in a tangible object. A few more extraordinary interpretations even speculate on connections to lost or advanced civilizations, hinting that the plate may carry knowledge predating known Himalayan traditions. While such ideas remain controversial, they underscore the object's ability to challenge conventional narratives. The craftsmanship itself invites reflection. The circular form, uniform thickness, and precise etchings suggest extraordinary skill. Was this a product of a lone master artisan, trained in a now-forgotten tradition, or a communal effort, reflecting a society with a highly developed understanding of metallurgy and symbolic design? And if the latter, why does the record of such expertise vanish so completely from other archaeological traces in the region? Even the materials raise questions. Chemical analysis shows a resilience that surpasses local ironwork from the same period, yet does not match known alloys from other civilizations. Could it be the product of experimentation, a local innovation now lost, or evidence of distant contact and exchange, hinting at technological knowledge that traveled along trade routes crossing mountains, rivers, and valleys long before the age of documented global connections? As we contemplate the Lolladoff plate, its delicate spirals and mysterious markings, it becomes apparent that the object is more than a curiosity. It is a window into the cognitive and cultural complexity of ancient Himalayan societies, a fragment that hints at skills, knowledge, and symbolic thinking that have been largely obscured by time. It challenges assumptions about technological development, artistic expression, and the preservation of knowledge in isolated mountain communities. Yet, for all its intrigue, the Lolladoff plate remains stubbornly silent. Its origin, purpose, and meaning continue to elude definitive explanation. It sits quietly in museum storage or private collections, a metallic whisper from centuries past, inviting investigation yet withholding certainty. What knowledge did its creators intend to preserve? Was it a ceremonial object, an astronomical instrument, a symbolic map, or something that transcends categories we can comprehend? And how many other artifacts, lost in caves, hidden in mountain passes, or buried in sacred sites, await discovery, capable of reshaping our understanding of human history? The Lolladoff plate endures as a testament to mystery, its precision, beauty, and ambiguity compelling us to question, to explore, and to accept that some secrets of the past are meant to provoke wonder as much as to provide answers. In the misty heights of Nepal, amid landscapes that have witnessed centuries of human ingenuity and devotion, The plate lies as it has for centuries, silent, enigmatic, and inviting us to imagine what else may be hidden, waiting for those patient enough to seek it. As the desert sands of Ica settle behind us, along with the carved stones that challenge our understanding of prehistory, our journey now turns to another object of intrigue. A relic of ancient ingenuity and secrecy, buried deep within the caves near the Dead Sea. Here, amidst the arid cliffs and sun-scorched valleys of the Judean desert, lies the Copper Scroll, a singular manuscript that diverges sharply from its contemporaries and leaves scholars grappling with questions that remain unanswered to this day. Discovered in 1952 among the Dead Sea Scrolls at Qumran, the Copper Scroll immediately drew attention for its uniqueness. Unlike the other manuscripts written on parchment or papyrus, this scroll was etched onto thin sheets of copper. The metal, painstakingly hammered and inscribed with sharp stylus marks, has preserved remarkably well over the centuries, resisting decay in a harsh environment where organic materials often perish. Its very material suggests intent. This was meant to endure, to resist time, corrosion, and perhaps discovery. The content of the scroll is as extraordinary as its medium. Rather than containing scripture, prophecy, or commentary, it lists locations and quantities of hidden treasure, gold, silver, vessels, and objects of immense value, buried in secret caches across the Judean hills and valleys. The language is terse, precise, and enigmatic, describing landmarks, distances, and sometimes directions that are almost impossible to reconcile with present-day topography. It reads like a combination of a ledger and a treasure map, yet its purpose and authenticity remain deeply debated. The mainstream interpretation is cautious. Many scholars suggest that the Copper Scroll was a record created by a sect, possibly the Essenes, who sought to protect sacred wealth or communal assets during a period of political turmoil and Roman conquest. Others propose that it may describe temple treasures from Jerusalem, hidden to prevent seizure by invading forces. Yet even within these frameworks, questions proliferate. Why use copper instead of more common writing materials? How could such precise directions be expected to remain interpretable across generations? And perhaps most puzzling, if the treasures were real, why were they never recovered? And why does the landscape today fail to yield the described riches? The scroll also raises practical and symbolic mysteries. Copper, while durable, is heavy and difficult to inscribe, especially in sheets thin enough to be rolled. The effort required to create the scroll suggests urgency or deep reverence. Was the act of inscribing the locations itself a ritual, a sacred duty, or a practical safeguard against theft? The precision of the measurements, coupled with references to obscure landmarks, implies a knowledge of the landscape that is remarkably detailed. And yet, over 2 millennia, the terrain has changed, making some of these references nearly impossible to verify. Speculative theories extend the intrigue further. Some researchers posit that the Copper Scroll may be a record of treasures beyond the temple, wealth accumulated over centuries, belonging to powerful factions or even secret repositories intended for future generations. Others suggest more extraordinary possibilities, that the scroll encodes a network of hidden knowledge, combining practical treasure mapping with symbolic or ritual significance. Could it have been a test, a key to spiritual or communal understanding, rather than simply a guide to material wealth? The hunt for these treasures has captivated adventurers, archaeologists, and treasure hunters alike. Numerous expeditions have sought the sites described in the scroll, yet none have produced definitive results. Some hypothesize that the treasures were recovered in antiquity, lost to history before modern discovery. Others suggest that certain references may have been intentionally obscure or coded, so that only those initiated into a specific tradition could interpret them correctly. In this light, the scroll functions as both a record and a puzzle, designed to preserve information while maintaining secrecy. The Copper Scroll also invites reflection on human intent and foresight. Whoever created it understood the fragility of human institutions and the volatility of political power. They chose copper, a material resistant to decay and destruction, implying an expectation that the record might survive long after its creators were gone. Yet they also embedded ambiguity, ensuring that the knowledge would be inaccessible to casual observers. This balance of preservation and concealment speaks to a sophisticated understanding of both human behavior and the passage of time. Even the act of reading the scroll today is an interpretive challenge. Distances are described in ancient measures, landmarks may no longer exist, and some instructions are cryptic to the point of obscurity. Scholars have reconstructed portions, compared them to geographical features, and attempted to map the described locations, but certainty remains elusive. The Copper Scroll sits at the intersection of archaeology, linguistics, history, and speculation, a testament to the complexity of human records and the limits of modern understanding. Walking through the desert valleys of Qumran, imagining the figures who etched the scroll into copper, one is struck by the layers of intention embedded in this object. It is at once practical and symbolic, material and mystical, a document of extraordinary effort and cryptic purpose. The treasures it describes, if they exist, remain hidden, and the motivations behind their concealment may forever lie just beyond our grasp. The Copper Scroll reminds us that history is not always straightforward, and that some artifacts challenge us to consider the interplay of power, faith, and secrecy. It raises questions about wealth, ritual, and human foresight that go beyond the physical objects it records. How much of history is written to be found, and how much is deliberately obscured, waiting for the right moment, or the right observer, to uncover it? As the desert wind sweeps across the sun-baked cliffs and caves of Qumran, the Copper Scroll lies preserved, silent yet eloquent, a testament to human ingenuity and enigma. It beckons us to wonder, to explore, and to recognize that some mysteries endure not because they are impossible to solve, but because they were meant to resist understanding, holding their secrets until the world is ready, or perhaps forever. Leaving the intricate impressions of Khafaja behind, our journey moves further into the Levant, to the plains of what is now modern-day Jordan. Here, in the fertile expanses surrounding the ancient settlement of Ain Ghazal, archaeologists uncovered a discovery that would challenge our understanding of early human expression and belief. A collection of life-sized plaster figures, some standing over 3 feet tall, their forms eerily human, yet somehow unlike anything we encounter today. The Ain Ghazal statues, or plaster figures, emerge from the Neolithic world around 7000 BCE, a time when humans were transitioning from nomadic hunter-gatherer groups to settled agricultural societies. But the statues are not simply decorative or ceremonial. They seem to embody a deeper, almost haunting presence. The figures are crafted from a core of bundled reeds, covered with layers of plaster and painted with natural pigments. Their faces are minimalist, yet arresting. Hollow eyes, sharply defined noses, and occasionally faint traces of hair or clothing details. Some figures are complete, others are fragmented, their limbs broken or missing, yet their overall impression remains strikingly lifelike. The scale, the detail, and the deliberate care suggest that these were not casual creations. They were objects of significance, intended to endure, to be seen, perhaps even to participate in the spiritual or social life of the community. Ain Ghazal itself is a sprawling Neolithic settlement, remarkable in its urban layout, with rows of rectangular houses and evidence of carefully planned streets. It was here, buried in the soil of abandoned homes and ceremonial spaces, that archaeologists uncovered the statues, often in pairs, occasionally alone. The context of their discovery hints at ritual practice. Some were intentionally buried, their placement suggesting an act of reverence, mourning, or symbolic protection. But beyond the archaeological details, it is the figures themselves that provoke questions. Why were they created at all? What did they mean to the people who made them? And why invest such extraordinary effort into crafting representations of human forms in a society that left no written records to explain their purpose? Mainstream interpretations suggest that these figures were part of ancestral or fertility rituals, perhaps intended to embody spirits, honor the deceased, or invoke protection for the living. Their hollow eyes and stark faces could have represented the souls of those no longer among the living, or they might have served as guardians, watching over the settlement in ways unseen. Yet, even within these explanations, a sense of mystery lingers. The scale and quantity of the statues are unusual for the period. Dozens of figures were found, each uniquely formed yet conforming to a recognizable style, indicating both shared cultural understanding and individual artistic expression. How did these communities decide which traits to emphasize, which features to omit, and why were the figures painted in subtle, sometimes fading pigments? The craftsmanship is equally intriguing. Constructed from perishable materials and natural pigments, the statues were designed to endure, yet their creators worked with tools and techniques that required remarkable foresight and patience. The layering of plaster over reeds demands precision, ensuring stability while achieving the desired human form. Some statues display detailed shoulders, torsos, and even faint traces of arms, while others remain more abstract. What knowledge guided these artisans? Did they possess a symbolic vocabulary, a shared understanding of proportion, scale, and gesture that we can no longer decipher? Beyond their physical attributes, the statues evoke a profound psychological resonance. There is a subtle tension in their forms, a combination of realism and abstraction that makes them simultaneously familiar and unsettling. The hollow eyes, so often noted, seem to stare outward, engaging the viewer in a silent, timeless dialogue. Were these eyes intended to see for someone, to represent vision in the spiritual realm, or were they purely symbolic, a visual language now lost to history? Some scholars have suggested that the statues may also reflect early explorations of identity, community, and human representation. In a time when humans were forming permanent settlements and complex social structures, could these figures have served as embodiments of social roles, ancestral memory, or collective ideals? Might they have functioned as a bridge between the living and the dead, between individual and society, or even between humans and forces beyond comprehension? The absence of definitive explanations leaves the figures open to interpretation, a canvas on which questions, more than answers, are written. The burial of many figures adds another layer of intrigue. Some were carefully interred in pits, occasionally beneath house floors, suggesting ritual closure or intentional deposition. Others were found in fragmented states, as if deliberately broken before being placed in the ground. Were these acts symbolic, perhaps marking life transitions, seasons, or communal events? Or do they hint at a more enigmatic practice, one whose meaning has vanished over the millennia, leaving only the silent forms to witness our modern curiosity? In contemplating the Ain Ghazal statues, one cannot escape the sense that they were more than mere objects. They are echoes of a society grappling with human presence, mortality, and spiritual connection. They reflect an early understanding of representation, of what it means to capture the essence of a person, or perhaps something more elusive. The care, effort, and creativity involved in their production speak to a sophisticated worldview, one in which art, ritual, and social identity were deeply intertwined. As we leave the plains of Ain Ghazal, the figures linger in our imagination, their hollow eyes following us across time. What did they see? What did they know? And what stories did they carry into the soil that now holds them? How much of the human experience from 7,000 years ago remains encoded in their forms, just beyond our ability to read? The Ain Ghazal statues remain a quiet mystery, a testament to the enduring complexity of human creativity, belief, and memory. In their presence, we are reminded that some questions resist answers, inviting us instead to wonder, to reflect, and to consider what else might remain hidden, waiting to be discovered in the layers of time. As the mist of the Xiangquang Plateau lifts from the plain of jars, leaving behind the silent stone sentinels that have guarded their secrets for millennia, our journey now turns north, across vast plains and winding rivers, to the heart of what is now Sichuan province in China. Here, hidden for thousands of years beneath layers of soil, loam, and legend, lies the archaeological enigma of Sanxingdui, a civilization whose artifacts challenge everything we thought we knew about early Chinese history. The site first came to modern attention in 1929, but it was not until the 1980s that major excavations revealed the staggering scale and uniqueness of the finds. Gigantic bronze masks, some more than a meter tall, towering human figures, intricately carved jade objects, and gold and ivory artifacts emerged from pits that had been deliberately filled and buried. The artistry is immediately striking. The masks display exaggerated facial features, almond-shaped eyes, protruding ears, and wide, flaring nostrils, while the figures exhibit proportions and forms unlike any contemporaneous culture in China. These objects are monumental, both literally and symbolically, suggesting a society capable of astonishing technical and artistic achievement. Radiocarbon dating places the Sanxingdui culture around 1250 to 1100 BCE, roughly contemporaneous with the Shang dynasty. Yet the artifacts reveal a culture that seems entirely distinct. The bronzes, in particular, are unprecedented in both style and scale. The casting techniques, the use of alloys, and the sheer size of some objects imply knowledge and resources that surpass what was previously assumed for this region at that time. How could such skill have developed in a civilization that was largely unknown until the late 20th century? And how had it remained hidden, leaving no written records or clearly traceable successors? Mainstream archaeological interpretations suggest that Sanxingdui was part of a regional culture in the Sichuan Basin, connected to the wider network of Bronze Age China, but with distinct local practices and artistic sensibilities. The deliberate burial of the artifacts in deep pits has led many scholars to propose ritual or ceremonial purposes. Were these treasures offerings to deities, objects intended for ancestor veneration, or symbols of political authority and social hierarchy? The answer remains tantalizingly elusive. The scale and mystery of the finds invite further speculation. Some of the bronze masks possess exaggerated features that seem almost alien, eyes staring wide and unblinking, mouths open in silent expression. Could these have been intended to represent deities, ancestral spirits, or beings from a cosmology now lost to time? The scale alone, some statues nearly life-size, others colossal, suggests that the creators intended to awe, intimidate, or convey profound spiritual or social significance. What messages were encoded in these forms, and why were they buried so deliberately, only to remain hidden for over 3,000 years? The artifacts also suggest a society with highly developed craft specialization. The production of large-scale bronzes requires sophisticated metallurgy, precise casting techniques, and coordinated labor. Yet no definitive evidence of urban centers, palaces, or settlements has been found to match the monumental scale of these objects. Where were the communities that produced them? How was such labor organized? And why does so little of their daily life survive alongside their ritual and artistic achievements? Speculative theories abound. Some propose that the Sanxingdui culture represents a lost civilization, distinct from the Shang and other contemporaneous states, with its own language, religious practices, and social organization. Others suggest connections to shamanistic or spiritual traditions, interpreting the masks and figures as representations of intermediaries between the human and divine, or as ceremonial instruments in complex rites. A few more extraordinary ideas even speculate on contact with distant or unknown civilizations, highlighting the alien-like aesthetic of the artifacts and the seeming impossibility of their technological sophistication for the era. The deliberate burial of these objects adds another layer of mystery. Archaeologists have noted that entire pits were filled in a single, coordinated act, with objects arranged carefully and intentionally. Some theorists suggest a dramatic ritual, perhaps in response to social upheaval, environmental catastrophe, or internal conflict, intended to consecrate, conceal, or even reset the sacred objects. Yet the lack of written explanation leaves us with questions that cannot easily be answered. What prompted such monumental deposits? Were they meant to be permanent or temporary offerings awaiting retrieval? Even the scale of the discovery challenges conventional thinking. Some pits contain dozens of large bronzes, jade artifacts, and gold ornaments, enough to suggest significant wealth and a centralized authority capable of mobilizing resources on a grand scale. The level of artistic uniformity and technical precision implies knowledge passed down through structured apprenticeships or workshops. Yet the abrupt disappearance of the culture leaves us asking, what became of the people of Sanxingdui? Did they migrate, merge with neighboring cultures, or were they extinguished by events now lost to history? Walking across the excavation sites today, one is struck by the sense of scale and otherworldliness. The mask's hollow eyes seem to follow the observer, and the colossal figures, even fractured and fragmented, retain an almost lifelike presence. These objects speak across centuries, demanding attention and contemplation. They are both human and uncanny, intimately familiar yet profoundly alien, and they hint at a worldview that may never be fully reconstructed. Sanxingdui reminds us that history is not always linear, that civilizations can rise, flourish, and vanish with minimal trace, leaving artifacts as silent witnesses to human ingenuity, belief, and creativity. Its discoveries challenge our assumptions about Bronze Age China and the development of complex societies, showing that human innovation is often more widespread and diverse than textual records suggest. As the sun sets over the Sichuan Basin, casting long shadows across the excavated pits, the Sanxingdui artifacts lie silent yet commanding, testaments to a lost culture whose technological mastery, artistic vision, and spiritual imagination continue to astonish. And as we gaze upon these monumental objects, we are compelled to ask, what other civilizations, brilliant and enigmatic, might lie hidden beneath the earth, waiting to be rediscovered? How many stories, encoded in bronze, stone, and jade, remain concealed, ready to challenge everything we think we know about the human past? As the bronzes and enigmatic relics of Sanxingdui recede into memory, their monumental artistry lingering in the imagination, our journey now sweeps westward across deserts and mountains to the arid expanses of the Arabian Peninsula. Here, amid rocky plateaus and sandy plains, lie silent monuments of human ingenuity and mystery, stone kites and wheels, remnants of what local tradition calls the works of the old men. These ancient constructions, etched across the landscape, invite speculation and awe, hinting at practices and knowledge that have long been obscured by time. From above, the stone kites resemble enormous geometric drawings, triangular enclosures stretching for hundreds of meters, lined with parallel walls that converge on narrow openings. Some are perfectly symmetrical, Others extend into labyrinthine corridors, their purpose deliberately opaque. Scattered among them are circular stone structures, often referred to as wheels, formed by concentric rings or radial lines, sometimes over 10 meters in diameter. Their forms are precise, yet the techniques used to construct them remain largely unexplained. Standing near them on the desert floor, one is struck by their scale, regularity, and the labor required to move and position countless stones in a barren, unforgiving landscape. Archaeologists estimate that many of these structures date back several millennia, though precise chronologies remain difficult due to the absence of organic material for carbon dating. Stone kites, in particular, are often interpreted as hunting traps, designed to funnel herds of animals toward enclosures where they could be captured en masse. The design is ingenious. Converging walls take advantage of animal behavior and landscape contours, suggesting a sophisticated understanding of both environment and prey. Yet despite this practical explanation, questions remain. Some kites are far larger and more complex than necessary for hunting, spanning kilometers, while others appear isolated or oriented in patterns that seem to defy purely functional purpose. Were they also symbolic, ceremonial, or markers of territorial claims? The circular wheels add another layer of enigma. Their precise radial geometry, often aligned along particular orientations, hints at more than decorative intent. Some researchers have suggested astronomical or calendrical functions, observing that certain rings may correspond to solar or lunar alignments. Others see them as ritual or social structures, possibly serving as gathering places or ceremonial centers. The lack of written records or oral tradition leaves these interpretations tantalizing yet inconclusive. What knowledge, beliefs, or social structures drove the creation of these formations, and how were they integrated into the lives of the communities that built them? Adding to the mystery is the sheer number and distribution of these structures. Stone kites and wheels are found across hundreds of kilometers in Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Oman, and Syria, suggesting a widespread cultural practice or shared technological knowledge. How did these techniques spread across such vast, often inhospitable terrain? Were the old men, as local legend names them, part of a single culture, or were they multiple groups employing similar strategies independently? And what motivated such a consistent geometric aesthetic across such diverse regions? The construction methods themselves are remarkable. Transporting, shaping, and arranging stones on this scale, without metal tools or advanced machinery, implies meticulous planning, organization, and an intimate knowledge of the terrain. Some stones are massive, weighing several tons, yet they were positioned with extraordinary precision. Did these builders possess surveying techniques lost to history, or was the process iterative and communal, honed over generations of practical experience? The sophistication of the layouts suggests cognitive capacities that challenge assumptions about prehistoric communities in this region. Speculative interpretations deepen the intrigue. Beyond hunting or practical uses, some suggest that these formations encoded information about territory, resources, or migration patterns. Others propose that they functioned as ritual landscapes, designed to connect human activity with celestial cycles, ancestral veneration, or social cohesion. A few even entertain the notion of symbolic communication between distant groups, the patterns serving as messages across deserts and plateaus. The lack of definitive evidence, however, leaves all of these possibilities open-ended, allowing the structures themselves to speak only in the silent, monumental language of stone. Modern exploration has confirmed that these stoneworks are far more extensive than early researchers realized. Drone surveys and satellite imagery have revealed intricate networks of kites and wheels, sometimes overlapping or connected, suggesting long-term planning and usage. Yet much remains inaccessible due to remoteness, erosion, or modern development, hinting at discoveries that may still lie hidden beneath the sands. Even in areas that have been studied, the scale of labor and coordination required for construction continues to inspire astonishment. The works of the old men compel reflection on the relationship between humans, landscape, and knowledge. These structures are neither merely functional nor purely aesthetic. They embody intelligence, observation, and perhaps ritual intent. They remind us that prehistoric and early historic societies could combine practical needs with symbolic expression, embedding meaning into the very land itself. Yet, like the other mysteries we have encountered, the Vinca figurines, the Ica stones, and Sanxingdui bronzes, they also demonstrate how much of human ingenuity can vanish from memory, leaving only silent monuments to hint at the sophistication of their creators. As the sun sets over the desert plains, casting elongated shadows across the stone kites and wheels, one cannot help but feel the presence of the hands and minds that shaped them. Who were the old men, and what knowledge did they seek to preserve in stone? Were these structures a practical tool, a spiritual landscape, a social statement, or something entirely beyond our understanding? And most intriguingly, what other creations, buried or eroded, remain hidden in the vast deserts of Arabia, waiting to whisper their secrets to those who seek them? The stone kites and wheels endure as a testament to human curiosity, ingenuity, and the desire to leave a mark on the landscape. They challenge our assumptions about technological and organizational capacity in ancient Arabia and invite us to consider the interplay of function, symbolism, and human imagination. Silent and monumental, they compel us to ask, how much more of the human past remains obscured, and what other enigmas etched in stone and memory are waiting for the patient and observant to uncover them? Beneath the crystalline waters of the Aegean Sea, near the rugged coastlines of Greece, lies a wreck that has fascinated historians and treasure hunters for over a century. In 1900, sponge divers stumbled upon the remnants of a Roman-era ship, its cargo scattered and broken by centuries of currents and corrosion. Among the mundane amphorae and bronze statuary, however, one object would challenge our understanding of ancient technology in ways few could have anticipated: the Antikythera mechanism. At first glance, it appears unremarkable. A corroded bronze fragment, roughly the size of a shoebox, riddled with jagged edges and encrusted with calcified deposits. But within this battered shell, intricate gears, some barely a centimeter across, interlock with a precision that seems almost impossibly sophisticated for its purported age, around 100 BCE. Even after decades of painstaking study, the mechanism continues to defy easy classification. It is neither a simple sundial nor a conventional astrolabe. Instead, it is a machine designed to predict, to calculate, to model the cosmos itself, a miniature universe of bronze, encased in mystery. Scholars have long marveled at its craftsmanship. Using X-ray imaging and 3D modeling, researchers revealed a series of interlocking wheels, gears, and dials that could track the cycles of the sun, moon, and even the irregular orbit of the planet known to us as Saturn. Some reconstructions suggest it could predict eclipses, the movements of the lunar nodes, and even the timing of pan-Hellenic games like the Olympics. To imagine such an instrument being built over 2,000 years ago is to confront a cognitive dissonance. The mechanism seems to belong to a world far ahead of its own time. How did artisans of the Hellenistic period conceive such precision? And where, in their historical record, is the blueprint for this technological marvel? Yet, as scholars pieced together its functions, the story became stranger. Certain gears, lost in fragments and painstakingly reconstructed, reveal a sophistication that doesn't fully match any surviving knowledge of Greek mechanics. Some researchers argue that the mechanism's creators must have possessed a deeper understanding of astronomy than we have credited them with, perhaps even knowledge that predates the era we assume as its origin. Did this knowledge exist in scattered, now lost treatises? Or was it passed down orally, encoded in workshops whose names we will never know? Adding to the puzzle is the very rarity of such devices. If the Antikythera mechanism was one of a kind, why? In a society capable of creating complex public structures, statues, and elaborate engineering feats, why do we find almost no other examples of comparable mechanical devices? Could it have been a prototype, an esoteric tool meant for a select few, or evidence of a broader technological tradition now erased by time? Then there are the anomalies, details so precise and deliberate that they suggest a mind willing to challenge conventional understanding. Minute inscriptions describe astronomical cycles with astonishing accuracy, yet they are etched in an archaic dialect, suggesting layers of history encoded in each gear. The design anticipates not only the visible patterns of the heavens, but also the subtle irregularities of planetary motion, an understanding that would not be fully formalized in Western science until millennia later. How could such predictive sophistication exist at this point in history? The intrigue deepens when we consider the gaps in our knowledge. Many of the mechanism's gears are missing or damaged, leaving us to reconstruct functions based on educated guesswork. Some reconstructions suggest it might have incorporated even more advanced features, calculations that could have predicted the positions of planets or eclipses decades into the future. Others propose that the mechanism had a ceremonial or symbolic function, encoding cosmic cycles in a way that blended science with philosophy, ritual with mathematics. The lack of surviving parallels only heightens the sense of wonder and perhaps the frustration as we try to peer through a keyhole into a room whose full architecture remains hidden. Speculation has inevitably extended into more fringe territory. Could the mechanism represent lost knowledge from a forgotten civilization, one whose technological accomplishments surpassed what we assume of the ancient world? Some theorists point to similar complexity in the astronomical texts of Babylon or the mathematical innovations of Alexandria, suggesting a network of knowledge that might have converged in this single artifact. Others consider the possibility of observational tools or techniques that left no trace except in the form of this bronze puzzle. Each theory, whether grounded in documented history or tantalizing conjecture, circles around the same central question. How could such precision have emerged, apparently in isolation, in the ancient Mediterranean? Despite decades of study, the Antikythera mechanism refuses to yield all its secrets. Every discovery, the identification of a new gear, the reconstruction of a dial, the revelation of an inscription, opens fresh questions. What other devices might have existed, now lost beneath the sands of time or the depths of the sea? Were the mechanism's creators solitary geniuses, or part of a broader intellectual tradition we have yet to uncover? And perhaps most hauntingly, if the ancients could achieve this level of technical mastery, what else might they have known that we no longer remember? Standing before a reconstruction of the mechanism today, it is difficult not to feel a quiet awe. The precision of its gears, the complexity of its calculations, the artistry of its construction, each element speaks across millennia, a whisper from minds that once sought to grasp the cosmos in bronze. And yet, like a half-heard secret, it remains tantalizingly incomplete. The more we uncover, the more it seems that the mechanism is not merely a device to study. It is a riddle, a bridge to an understanding that continues to elude us. What knowledge lies hidden, still buried beneath the waves? What truths about human ingenuity, lost civilizations, or the boundaries of ancient science might the Antikythera mechanism hint at, but never fully reveal? As we continue to explore its fragments, we are reminded that some mysteries do not conclude with certainty. They endure, quietly challenging us to wonder, to question, and to imagine what might still lie undiscovered. Not far from the dimly lit archives of Yale University's Vinca Rare Book and Manuscript Library, where the faint scent of aged paper and leather lingers in the air, rests one of the most perplexing artifacts in the history of literature and cryptography, the Voynich manuscript. Encased behind glass, the manuscript appears deceptively ordinary at first glance. A thick, bound volume of vellum, yellowed with age, its pages densely inscribed in an elegant but utterly unrecognizable script. Yet, despite centuries of scrutiny, no one has definitively deciphered its contents. The manuscript is a puzzle, a code that has resisted the intellect of mathematicians, linguists, and cryptographers for generations. Opening its pages, one is immediately struck by the vivid illustrations. They are unlike anything found in contemporary European texts. Botanical drawings depict plants that do not correspond to any known species, their leaves and flowers seeming to grow from imagination rather than nature. Astronomical diagrams swirl across the parchment, strange configurations of stars and moons that suggest a cosmic order known to someone, somewhere, but to whom, and for what purpose, remains elusive. In other sections, human figures bathe in pools of green and blue, connected by twisting pipes or channels, in scenes that hint at medicine, alchemy, or ritual. Each page is a blend of careful observation and enigmatic abstraction, a delicate balance between the real and the fantastical. The manuscript's history, though fragmentary, is itself a journey into uncertainty. Carbon dating places the vellum between 1404 and 1438, firmly within the early Renaissance period, yet the origins of its script are entirely unknown. It first emerged in modern times in 1912, when a rare book dealer named Wilfrid Voynich acquired it from an Italian monastery. Since then, scholars have traced it through various private collections, yet no definitive author, location, or purpose has been identified. Its provenance seems almost intentionally obscured, as if the manuscript were meant to vanish into time, leaving only the questions it inspires. Attempts to decode the text have yielded astonishing, if inconclusive, results. Linguists and cryptographers have noted consistent patterns, repeated symbols, and an underlying structure that strongly suggests it is a language, or perhaps an elaborate cipher. Some statistical analyses even hint at grammar and syntax reminiscent of natural languages. Yet despite the best efforts of modern artificial intelligence and centuries of human ingenuity, the manuscript remains indecipherable. Is it a sophisticated code, a lost language, or a clever hoax designed to baffle and intrigue? Speculation stretches far beyond conventional explanations. Some scholars suggest the manuscript might record a forgotten system of knowledge, medicinal, astronomical, or alchemical, hidden in code to protect it from the uninitiated. Others propose that the plants and diagrams represent symbolic truths rather than literal ones, encoding philosophical or mystical ideas in a visual language we no longer understand. A few researchers have even entertained more radical theories. Could it be evidence of knowledge imported from a lost civilization, or a manual composed in an invented language whose logic is entirely internal, independent of any spoken tongue? Each hypothesis circles the same central enigma. The manuscript conveys meaning, yet its meaning remains elusive, a secret locked within its inked lines. The illustrations themselves deepen the mystery. Botanists have attempted to match each drawing with known flora, yet few correspond convincingly to any real-world species. Astronomers have examined the celestial diagrams, noting the moons, stars, and constellations, yet many details seem inconsistent with known astronomy of the period. Alchemists and historians have suggested symbolic readings, connecting the manuscript to early European traditions of mystical and medicinal knowledge. The drawings may offer clues, but they resist easy interpretation, teasing the viewer with fragments of a logic that might never be fully grasped. Even the very act of studying the manuscript seems to magnify its mystery. Scholars report that the text is internally consistent, with repeated patterns and plausible letter distributions, as if written by someone fluent in an unknown linguistic system. Yet no translation or cipher key has held up to rigorous scrutiny. Some cryptographers argue that it could be a sophisticated natural language lost to history. Others suggest an elaborate, carefully constructed linguistic puzzle intended to confound readers. The manuscript's durability as a mystery, surviving centuries of analysis, hints at a deliberate complexity, a depth of thought that challenges assumptions about what early Renaissance writers could achieve. And there is a subtle unease in its beauty. Unlike other manuscripts, which convey meaning through familiar language or imagery, the Voynich manuscript remains stubbornly alien. Its patterns are both orderly and alien, predictable yet maddeningly opaque. It raises fundamental questions about communication and knowledge. Can meaning exist entirely within an invented system? What knowledge might have been recorded, preserved, yet ultimately obscured by a code we cannot break? And what does it reveal about the ingenuity, or even the imagination, of the human mind? Despite countless studies and endless fascination, the manuscript refuses to relinquish its secrets. It is a book that both invites scrutiny and punishes assumption, a testament to the enduring allure of the unknown. Its pages, vibrant with color and life, are a reminder that history contains layers we may never fully unravel, and that some knowledge, however painstakingly encoded, can remain tantalizingly out of reach. As we close its covers, we are left with an enduring question. Does the Voynich manuscript hide a message intended to enlighten, to deceive, or perhaps to inspire wonder itself? Does it contain knowledge we might one day recover, or is it a deliberate mystery, existing to remind us of the limits of understanding? In its silence, the manuscript continues to speak, softly, insistently, enigmatically, inviting us to ponder what other secrets of the human imagination might still lie hidden, waiting beneath layers of time and ink. High in the arid expanses of California's Mojave Desert, where the wind sculpts sand and rock into silent, jagged forms, lies a mystery that has intrigued collectors, geologists, and investigators alike. In 1961, 3 rockhounders, hunting for geodes near Olancha, stumbled upon a peculiar object embedded in what appeared to be hardened clay. At first, it seemed unremarkable, merely a small, rough concretion among countless stones. Yet when they cracked it open, what lay within defied immediate explanation. A delicate, metallic object encased in layers of natural concretion that had clearly formed over time. It was soon dubbed the Coso Artifact, a small spark plug, or at least something that bore a striking resemblance to one, entombed in what seemed to be a rock over 500,000 years old. The object itself is diminutive, roughly the size of a modern flashlight battery, yet its composition immediately drew attention. Metal parts, ceramic insulation, and a central electrode were all clearly visible, suggesting a manufactured device of some kind. To the untrained eye, it might appear as an ordinary spark plug, but the context of its discovery and the apparent age of the surrounding concretion transformed it into a puzzle that traditional timelines struggle to accommodate. How could an object apparently modern in design be encased in rock that, if dating estimates were accurate, predated known human technology by tens of thousands of years, even hundreds of thousands? Geologists examining the concretion noted its unusual hardness and mineralization, indicating a process that generally requires centuries, if not millennia, to occur. Radiometric tests on the surrounding matrix suggested an age far older than any known spark plug could be. Mainstream explanations lean toward a more conventional interpretation. Perhaps the object was a 20th century spark plug that had become embedded in sediment through natural processes, or perhaps the concretion itself formed unusually fast under desert conditions. Yet these explanations never fully accounted for the complete integration of the object within the surrounding rock, leaving room for doubt and speculation. The Coso Artifact gained notoriety not just because of its apparent anachronism, but because it touches on a deeper question. How do we define the boundary between ancient and modern? The spark plug, a symbol of 20th century industrial ingenuity, seemed impossibly out of place in a context suggesting deep antiquity. Was this a rare, isolated case of contamination, or does it hint at a more profound gap in our understanding of history? Could it represent evidence of a lost technological lineage, or even an unknown chapter in the story of human invention? Over the years, enthusiasts and researchers have offered a variety of interpretations. Some suggest that the artifact might be an unusually preserved modern device, accidentally embedded in natural deposits, later misinterpreted due to the concretion. Others propose it could be an example of an out-of-place artifact, or OOP art, items which appear to contradict established historical timelines. Fringe theories extend even further, suggesting ancient civilizations may have achieved technological sophistication far earlier than conventional archaeology allows, or, in the most speculative scenarios, that the object might hint at non-human involvement in the distant past. Each theory, grounded or speculative, circles the same central question. How did this object come to exist in a setting that seems impossible by conventional understanding? Part of the mystery lies in the artifact's design. The central electrode and metallic casing are reminiscent of early 20th century automotive engineering, yet no definitive manufacturer or date has ever been attached to it. Some investigators have noted similarities to 1920s-era spark plugs, while others highlight inconsistencies that suggest it may not fit any known model. The combination of ceramic, metal, and precise machining, encased in a rock concretion, creates a dissonance that is difficult to reconcile with the surrounding geological context. How could such a delicate industrial object survive and remain so clearly identifiable while enveloped in natural processes that would normally obscure or destroy modern materials? The setting itself amplifies the enigma. The Mojave Desert, harsh and unyielding, has preserved countless artifacts and fossils over millennia. Its isolation and the stability of its environment make it plausible for objects to endure. Yet the Coso Artifact challenges our assumptions about time and the processes of fossilization and concretion. Unlike typical archaeological finds, which can be traced through stratigraphy and context, this object resists placement within a clear historical or geological narrative. It hovers between eras, a temporal anomaly that defies simple explanation. The artifact also invites reflection on human curiosity and the limitations of our understanding. Each examination raises more questions than it answers. Was it left behind accidentally? Deliberately? Could it be a mundane object transformed into mystery by the passage of time? Or does it reveal a chapter of technological history we have yet to uncover? Its story is one of ambiguity, an object that demands careful scrutiny and, at the same time, allows imagination to wander into realms that conventional archaeology cannot fully illuminate. The Coso Artifact endures as a silent enigma, preserved in the vast, sun-scorched expanses of the desert. It is a reminder that even in places we think we understand, anomalies emerge, artifacts that do not fit the expected narrative, objects that quietly question the timelines we take for granted. Its mystery is not solved, nor is it likely to be explained definitively anytime soon. The artifact persists, a small, metallic ghost from an indeterminate past embedded in rock, challenging us to reconsider the boundaries of history and technology. What truths might lie hidden in other remote corners of the world, waiting for a careful eye or a fortunate accident to bring them to light? Could the Coso Artifact be a singular oddity, Or is it part of a larger, untold story of human, or perhaps pre-human, ingenuity? In the silence of the Mojave Desert, surrounded by windswept rock and shifting sands, these questions remain unanswered, leaving us to ponder the limits of our knowledge and the enduring allure of the unexplained. Off the southern coast of Japan's Yonaguni Island, where the Pacific waves lap against jagged cliffs and the currents sweep with relentless force, lies a submerged structure that has puzzled explorers, geologists, and archaeologists for decades. Beneath the surface of the East China Sea, at depths of roughly 25 meters, a series of massive stone formations rise from the seabed. At first glance, they appear to be the product of natural geology, sedimentary rock eroded over millennia into angular, stepped shapes. Yet the more closely they are studied, the more their appearance suggests deliberate construction, a submerged city, frozen in stone, whose origins remain elusive. The Yonaguni Monument is a sprawling formation, stretching several hundred meters, composed of terraces, platforms, and what some describe as staircases or roads. Massive blocks are precisely aligned, with right angles and flat surfaces that seem unusual in a naturally fractured rock environment. Some features resemble walls or towers, while others hint at architectural design. Sharp edges, wide platforms, and clear layering that gives the impression of deliberate planning. Divers navigating the monument report a landscape unlike any other underwater site, one that is both familiar and alien, evoking the sense of walking through a city that time has claimed. Dating the monument has proven difficult, in part because it is submerged, and in part because geological forces in the region are dynamic. Sea levels rose at the end of the last ice age, roughly 10,000 years ago, flooding the continental shelf. If the monument is man-made, it implies human activity far earlier than mainstream archaeology would typically allow, predating known complex civilizations in the region. This raises profound questions. Who could have constructed such an enormous structure so long ago, and for what purpose? Was it ceremonial, residential, or something else entirely? Mainstream geologists have often argued that the Yonaguni formations are the result of natural processes. They point to the region's tectonic activity, fault lines, and patterns of erosion, which can create strikingly regular shapes. Indeed, sharp edges, terraces, and polygonal fractures are not uncommon in volcanic or sedimentary rock subjected to pressure and natural cracking. Yet the counter-argument persists. While nature can produce angular formations, the sheer scale and apparent symmetry of Yonaguni are difficult to dismiss entirely. Some features, including what appear to be straight roads or rectangular platforms, suggest a level of planning that would be extraordinary for purely natural processes. Explorers and divers have noted additional anomalies that deepen the mystery. Certain sections seem to resemble amphitheaters or ceremonial plazas. Carvings on the rock, whether natural fissures or intentional engravings, hint at symbolic or artistic intent. Pillars rise vertically, some weighing hundreds of tons, perfectly aligned with other formations in ways that suggest an understanding of geometry. Even more puzzling, the site includes channels and terraces that seem engineered to manage water flow, as if someone had anticipated the tides long before modern engineering would have allowed it. Speculative theories have flourished in response to the monument's ambiguity. Some propose it is the remnant of a lost civilization, possibly one that perished during the post-Ice Age rise of sea levels. Others suggest that it could be part of an even older network of megalithic sites, evidence that human civilization, or at least complex social organization, reached heights far earlier than conventional archaeology acknowledges. A few fringe voices even explore the possibility of extraterrestrial influence, although no tangible evidence supports such claims. What is clear, however, is that the monument resists a simple explanation, occupying a liminal space between natural geology and human ingenuity. The very act of diving at Yonaguni intensifies its enigmatic aura. Visibility fluctuates, currents shift, and shadows play across the flat surfaces, making terraces appear like streets, platforms like building foundations. The scale is imposing. Divers report a sense of awe, of being dwarfed by an order that seems deliberate, yet incomprehensibly ancient. The underwater environment preserves the site remarkably well, yet it also conceals it, leaving critical details obscured by silt and marine growth. Each exploration offers tantalizing hints, but no definitive proof of construction, leaving observers suspended between wonder and skepticism. What strikes many is the monument's endurance and isolation. Unlike other underwater ruins associated with known civilizations, Yonaguni stands alone, submerged, unconnected to a clear historical lineage. There are no written records, no surviving tools or artifacts to suggest its builders or purpose. Its very silence speaks as loudly as any inscription, inviting questions about the scope and scale of human ingenuity before recorded history. Could an advanced society have existed in the region, wiped out by rising seas or natural disaster? Or is Yonaguni simply nature's most convincing illusion, a geological coincidence shaped by time and tide into something our minds instinctively recognize as architectural? The Yonaguni monument remains a site of paradox, a formation that is at once magnificent and enigmatic, ancient and immediate, familiar yet otherworldly. It challenges our assumptions about what humans could accomplish and what the earth itself can sculpt. Every dive, every photograph, every survey opens new questions while leaving older ones unresolved, emphasizing the fragile boundary between observation and interpretation. As the sun filters down through the water, illuminating terraces and channels carved or formed over countless millennia, the monument continues to hold its secrets. Was it shaped by hands, by natural forces, or by some combination of the two? What stories lie trapped in its submerged stone, waiting for discovery? In the quiet stillness of the East China Sea, the Yonaguni monument invites us to wonder, to question, and to imagine the hidden depths of human history and of the mysteries that time has yet to reveal. Far to the north, where the windswept Orkney Islands rise from the cold waters of Scotland, lies a settlement that has stood almost perfectly preserved for over 5,000 years. Unlike the submerged mystery of Yonaguni, Skara Brae sits upon a grassy plain, its stone dwellings nestled low to the ground, shielded from the relentless North Sea storms. Discovered in 1850 after a fierce winter storm stripped away the covering earth, the village presents an uncanny glimpse into the lives of people who lived at the dawn of Europe's Neolithic period. At first glance, Skara Brae may appear simply as a cluster of stones, yet the precision and sophistication of its construction hint at a level of organization that continues to intrigue historians and archaeologists alike. The village consists of 8 clustered houses, interconnected by low, covered passageways of flagstone. Each dwelling is built from slabs of local stone, shaped and fitted with remarkable skill, creating a network of rooms complete with stone-built furniture, beds, dressers, and storage boxes. The interiors are surprisingly uniform, suggesting a standardized approach to domestic life and a highly coordinated community. Unlike other Neolithic sites, which often leave only fragmentary traces, Skara Brae offers a complete picture of daily life. Cooking areas, sleeping quarters, and tools arranged with meticulous care. One can almost imagine the rhythms of its inhabitants, the quiet hum of domestic chores, children playing in passageways, smoke curling through stone hearths. Yet, beneath this apparent domesticity lies a series of enigmas. Skara Brae predates both Stonehenge and the Great Pyramids, yet its dwellings exhibit engineering that seems surprisingly advanced for the time. Stone furniture is integrated directly into walls, Doorways are uniformly low and well constructed to withstand harsh winds, and storage areas suggest a sophisticated system for food preservation. Drainage channels, cleverly designed to direct water away from homes, indicate an understanding of environmental engineering that many contemporary settlements lacked. How did a community of people so early in Europe's Neolithic era develop such consistent architectural knowledge? And what cultural or social systems enabled such coordination? Excavations have revealed tools, jewelry, and remnants of daily life, yet little evidence of large-scale trade or written record exists. Some objects, such as intricately carved stone balls and beads, hint at symbolic or ritual significance, but their precise meaning is lost to time. The arrangement of houses, with passageways connecting dwellings in an almost labyrinthine pattern, raises further questions. Was this organization purely functional, a way to conserve warmth and space, or did it hold social or ceremonial significance? The village seems to whisper of a structured society, yet its customs and beliefs remain entirely obscured. Mainstream interpretations portray Skara Brae as a practical, resilient community, a settlement perfectly adapted to its environment. Indeed, the island's harsh climate and isolation would have demanded ingenuity, cooperation, and resourcefulness. But the site's sophistication, combined with its early date, has led some researchers to speculate that the Neolithic inhabitants may have possessed knowledge, now lost, about urban planning, construction, and communal living. Could these stone-built homes represent the vestiges of a broader network of settlements across prehistoric Europe, now vanished beneath centuries of erosion and farmland? Or was Skara Brae a unique experiment in communal living, a fleeting but extraordinary achievement of human ingenuity? The village also raises subtle yet persistent mysteries about human adaptation and resilience. How did a small population survive the cold, storm-lashed Orkney winters while maintaining such intricate dwellings? The precision of the stonework suggests both specialized knowledge and a stable social structure capable of transmitting that knowledge across generations. Yet no written language, no formal record, accompanies these remarkable constructions. Their story must be inferred solely from the silent stones themselves. And it is precisely this silence that fuels fascination, leaving us to read the architecture as both artifact and narrative, piecing together the lives of people whose voices will never be heard. Adding to the enigma is Skara Brae's preservation. The storm that revealed the site in the mid-19th century stripped away layers of soil, exposing a village that had lain undisturbed for millennia. Unlike most ancient settlements, which are lost to erosion, agriculture, or rebuilding, Skara Brae appears almost frozen in time. The passageways, the furniture, even traces of hearths remain intact, offering a rare window into the Neolithic mind. Yet the reasons for its sudden burial, and later its preservation, remain speculative. Was it deliberately abandoned, covered by sand in a sudden environmental shift, or did it slowly succumb to natural forces over generations? The ambiguity heightens its mystery. Beyond its structural sophistication, Skara Brae invites reflection on human curiosity, adaptation, and creativity. Its inhabitants left no grand monuments, no written histories, yet they crafted a settlement of enduring elegance, one that communicates across 5 millennia. The village embodies both the familiarity of domestic life and the profound enigma of a civilization we can only partially understand. In the cold Orkney light, the stone beds, doorways, and passageways feel almost alive, suggesting a rhythm of life both ordinary and extraordinary. As we walk mentally through the narrow corridors, tracing the lines of stone walls worn smooth by centuries, we are confronted with the same questions that have fascinated generations of explorers and archaeologists. How much did these early people understand about their environment, their society, and the tools of their craft? Were their innovations purely practical, Or did they arise from a deeper, now lost cultural knowledge? And most hauntingly, what other settlements, equally advanced but hidden or destroyed, might have existed, silently shaping the trajectory of human history? Skara Brae endures not only as a monument to human ingenuity, but also as a reminder of history's silences. The village's stones speak volumes, yet they leave us with a profound sense of wonder, a recognition that even in the distant past, humans were capable of achievements that challenge our assumptions about time, technology, and social organization. In their quiet resilience, the dwellings invite us to ponder what mysteries remain buried, waiting for discovery, and what lessons the ancients, in their stone-built homes, might still offer us today. In the fertile Bekaa Valley of modern-day Lebanon, beneath the shadow of Mount Hermon, lies a site that has mesmerized travelers, archaeologists, and engineers for centuries, the ancient city of Baalbek. Among its ruins, one of the most enigmatic features is not the soaring Roman temples or intricately carved capitals, but the colossal stone blocks that form their very foundation. Known locally as the Trilithon, these megaliths weigh hundreds of tons each. Some estimates put the largest at over 1,000 tons, and are positioned with a precision that seems almost unimaginable, even by today's standards. The scale is breathtaking. The blocks are so immense that modern machinery strains to move them, yet they were transported and assembled thousands of years ago, with no definitive record of the methods employed. At first glance, the site seems a testament to Roman engineering. Pillars rise, porticos stretch across the horizon, and the temple platform exudes symmetry and order. Yet the megaliths at Baalbek predate the visible Roman structures. Beneath the Grand Temple, enormous stone platforms lie arranged with meticulous care, forming a foundation that could support immense weight for millennia. Some stones are finely cut with edges that fit seamlessly against their neighbors. Others, the so-called lesser-known blocks, are even larger, more irregular, yet positioned with uncanny alignment. Their sheer mass, far exceeding anything the Romans are thought to have moved, raises a fundamental question. Who quarried and transported these stones, and how? Scholars have long documented the site, noting both its grandeur and the technical challenges it presents. Mainstream explanations focus on ingenuity and manpower. Ropes, levers, rollers, and sheer human labor could have moved these stones over relatively short distances, especially with the abundant manpower of organized societies. Yet when considering the largest stones, some of which lie partially buried and seem almost impossibly heavy, even these explanations feel incomplete. Ancient texts make no mention of the methods used, leaving only speculation, sketches, and reconstructions to hint at the process. The location itself adds to the mystery. The stones were quarried not from immediately adjacent sites, but from distances ranging up to several kilometers away, sometimes requiring precarious transport down steep inclines or across uneven terrain. The precision with which they were then placed, level, aligned, and interlocked, suggests advanced knowledge of geometry, weight distribution, and architectural planning. For the colossal blocks, no clear technological precedent exists in the archaeological record. How did builders achieve such feats without modern cranes or machinery? Were their techniques lost to history, forgotten over centuries, or is there more to the story that remains undiscovered? The lesser-known blocks, less frequently highlighted in popular accounts, pose an additional enigma. These stones are massive, yet they appear almost incidental, hidden behind the grandeur of the temples above. Beyond the physical mechanics lies a deeper philosophical mystery. Why undertake such enormous effort to move and place these stones? Baalbek's temples are monumental, but the foundations themselves seem almost excessive, built not merely to support structures, but to convey permanence, power, and perhaps cosmic significance. Some theorists suggest an alignment with celestial bodies, a symbolic connection between stone and sky. Others consider the possibility that the site served ritual or ceremonial functions that demanded an extraordinary architectural statement. Whatever the motivation, the scale and precision of these megaliths evoke a reverence for the builder's ambition and a profound respect for their understanding of the material world. The surrounding landscape, too, tells a story that hints at both human and geological forces. The Vinca Valley, shaped by tectonic activity and volcanic processes, offers a foundation both firm and unforgiving. Carving, moving, and placing stones in this environment would have required careful planning and extraordinary coordination. Yet no written records, no inscriptions, or diagrams exist to illuminate the methods. All we have are the stones themselves, silent witnesses to human ingenuity, and perhaps to questions that no document will ever answer. Standing before the trilithon today, one cannot help but feel dwarfed, not only by the size of the stones, but by the enigma of their creation. They speak to a level of ambition and capability that transcends conventional timelines of human engineering. Each block, carefully positioned, challenges our assumptions about ancient societies, their resources, their knowledge, and their determination. And yet, as we study the site, we realize that much of the story remains hidden beneath layers of earth, history, and speculation. What truths lie buried in the quarries, still waiting to reveal the secrets of transport, construction, and purpose? Were the lesser-known blocks part of an unfinished project, or remnants of a technique long lost to time? The Baalbek megaliths remain not just monuments of stone, but monuments to human curiosity, ambition, and the enduring mysteries of the past. In their massive, silent presence, they continue to invite wonder, questioning, and contemplation, reminding us that some feats of human ingenuity may forever defy explanation. In the arid plains of modern-day Iraq, near the ancient city of Baghdad, a small, unassuming artifact sits quietly in a museum display case, drawing the attention of historians, engineers, and curious visitors alike. Known as the Baghdad Battery, it appears at first glance to be little more than a clay jar, aged and cracked with centuries of exposure. Yet, within its humble exterior lies a mystery that continues to challenge our understanding of ancient technology and ingenuity. The artifact, simple in design, complex in implication, hints at the possibility that civilizations long past may have understood principles that modern scholars struggle to fully explain. The battery itself is modest in size, roughly 6 inches tall, fashioned from clay and capped with a copper cylinder. Within this cylinder rests an iron rod, suspended in a sticky organic material, possibly asphalt, to insulate it from the surrounding metal. To the modern observer, it is not immediately clear what purpose this combination of materials might serve. When researchers later experimented with similar jars, filling them with acidic liquids like vinegar or lemon juice, they discovered that the assembly could indeed produce a small electric current. This revelation sparked both fascination and controversy. Was this artifact a rudimentary battery, capable of powering simple electrochemical reactions, or something else entirely? The Baghdad Battery was discovered in 1936 by the German archaeologist Wilhelm König during excavations near the village of Kujut Rabu on the outskirts of Baghdad. Dating to the Parthian period, approximately 150 BCE to 223 CE, the artifact seemed anomalously advanced. While the Parthians were skilled metallurgists and engineers, there is no known textual or pictorial evidence from the period that describes electrical devices or their use. The battery's potential function, if indeed it was intended to generate electricity, is left entirely to speculation. Could it have been used for electroplating, for medicinal purposes, or even as part of ritual practices? Or does it represent something simpler, misinterpreted by modern imagination? The intrigue of the Baghdad Battery lies not just in its potential functionality, but in its context. Found alongside other ceramic and metal artifacts, The jar seems to have been part of everyday life, or at least part of a practice that was sufficiently significant to warrant careful construction. Its precise combination of metals and insulation materials indicates deliberate design. Copper, iron, organic sealing compounds, all chosen and assembled with apparent intention. Such careful engineering raises questions. Did the Parthians understand the chemical reactions they were producing, or was it an accidental discovery, a serendipitous combination of materials whose properties were unknown to their creators? Mainstream scholars have debated alternative explanations. Some propose that the artifact was a storage vessel, perhaps for scrolls or sacred substances, and that its electrical properties are merely coincidental. Others suggest it may have been used in religious or symbolic contexts, where the combination of metals and clay held ritual significance rather than functional utility. Yet the alignment of components, the iron rod within a copper cylinder, insulated from direct contact, suggests knowledge of electrical principles, whether intentional or intuitive. Experimental reconstructions have fueled both fascination and skepticism. When scientists replicate the device using acidic liquids, a measurable voltage is produced, enough, theoretically, to drive small electroplating processes or low-voltage chemical reactions. This has led to hypotheses that the Baghdad battery could have been used to plate objects with precious metals, producing gilded artifacts without modern chemical knowledge. Some researchers have even suggested that similar batteries could have been connected in series to increase voltage, hinting at a level of technological experimentation that would be astonishing for its era. Yet no physical evidence of wires, electroplated artifacts, or related paraphernalia has been conclusively linked to the Parthian period, leaving the question tantalizingly open. The artifact also prompts reflection on human ingenuity and the gaps in our historical understanding. If the Baghdad battery was indeed used to generate electricity, it represents an ephemeral chapter of technological achievement that has left almost no trace. It challenges assumptions about the timeline of discovery, reminding us that knowledge can be invented, lost, and rediscovered across the sweep of history. The jar is both ordinary and extraordinary, a reminder that even small, simple objects can carry profound implications about human curiosity and experimentation. In considering the Baghdad battery, one cannot ignore the interplay between what we know and what we imagine. The artifact sits silently in its glass case, stripped of context yet full of suggestion. Was it a tool of science, a curiosity of early experimentation, or merely an object whose function is forever lost to time? Could the Parthians have harnessed electricity in some rudimentary way? Or is the device a coincidental alignment of materials whose potential was never realized? The questions it raises are as compelling as the artifact itself, bridging the gap between documented history and tantalizing possibility. As we gaze upon this small clay jar, aged and unassuming, we are confronted with a paradox. The artifact is modest in scale, yet immense in the scope of its mystery. It invites us to consider what else might have existed in human history that remains unrecorded, misunderstood, or hidden beneath the layers of time. The Baghdad battery reminds us that technology is not strictly linear, that knowledge can appear, vanish, and reemerge in ways that challenge our assumptions. What other innovations of the past might have been forgotten, awaiting rediscovery? Was this jar a fleeting experiment, a misinterpreted ritual object, or evidence of a deeper technological understanding than we currently credit to ancient civilizations? In the quiet stillness of the museum, the Baghdad battery continues to hold its secret, silently prompting reflection, inquiry, and wonder, an enduring enigma at the intersection of human curiosity and the unexplained. Deep in the arid landscapes of South Africa's northwest province, amidst layers of shale and pyrophyllite dating back billions of years, lie objects that defy easy explanation. Known as the Klerksdorp spheres, These small metallic spheres and disks have puzzled geologists, archaeologists, and enthusiasts since their discovery in the 20th century. At first glance, they appear unremarkable, smooth, spherical stones, some as small as a marble, others several centimeters across. Yet their composition, shape, and apparent precision raise profound questions about their origin and purpose, questions that remain unresolved even today. The spheres are notable for their symmetry and unusual physical properties. Many are perfectly round or exhibit ridges and grooves that seem deliberate rather than incidental. Composed of a mix of minerals, often including iron and other metals, they display a density and hardness that make them remarkably resistant to wear. Some are solid, while others are hollow, with internal structures visible only when carefully cut or polished. Their precise form is striking, especially considering the estimated age of the surrounding rock formations, roughly 2 to 3 billion years old. This creates an immediate tension between geological context and apparent craftsmanship, leaving observers to wonder, could natural forces alone produce such uniformity, or is there something more at play? Most of the spheres were found within pyrophyllite deposits near the town of Klerksdorp, extracted by miners for industrial purposes. Miners reported discovering them scattered among layers of stone that have been dated to the Precambrian period, long before humans are believed to have existed. Their appearance, often metallic and unusually smooth, sparked immediate intrigue. Initial studies suggested they were natural concretions, formed over immense spans of time through processes like sedimentary layering and mineral deposition. Yet even among geologists, there remains debate. How could natural processes produce such symmetry, consistent internal density, and in some cases, grooves that appear almost machine-cut? What deepens the mystery is the sphere's variety and consistency. While some are simple, nearly featureless spheres, others display parallel grooves or equatorial ridges. The shapes are remarkably uniform, often resembling manufactured balls or discs, yet they are embedded within rock that predates human civilization by billions of years. Could natural mineral crystallization account for this level of uniformity? Or is there a missing element in our understanding of geological processes? The debate is ongoing, with some suggesting the spheres are entirely natural, while others posit that they may represent evidence of unknown, advanced activity in Earth's deep past. Experimental examinations have revealed additional peculiarities. When cut or polished, some spheres exhibit internal layering or structures that do not align with conventional patterns of sedimentary growth. Their metallic composition suggests processes involving heat and pressure, but whether these conditions occurred naturally or were influenced by unknown forces remains unclear. Some researchers note the resemblance to manufactured ball bearings or precision components, leading to speculative, if cautious, discussions about the implications. Could these objects be remnants of a long-forgotten civilization, or simply the result of geological coincidences that appear purposeful only through the lens of human perception? The location itself adds to the intrigue. South Africa's ancient rock formations provide a record of Earth's early history, preserving sedimentation, volcanic activity, and mineralization across billions of years. Within this context, the spheres are anomalies, standing out as objects of apparent order amid layers shaped by immense time and natural forces. Their presence challenges assumptions about what could exist within such ancient rock, raising questions about the potential for previously unrecognized geological or even technological phenomena in Earth's distant past. Mainstream science generally classifies the Klerksdorp spheres as concretions, formed when mineral deposits gradually built up around a core in the sedimentary matrix. This explanation accounts for their mineral composition and hardness, yet it struggles to explain the regularity, hollow structures, and distinctive grooves found in some specimens. Alternative interpretations have emerged in fringe or speculative circles, suggesting that the spheres may represent evidence of early technological activity, lost knowledge, or even the handiwork of a civilization predating humanity as we know it. While these ideas remain unverified, their very persistence underscores the enduring fascination and mystery surrounding the objects. The sphere's enigmatic nature prompts reflection on the limits of both human knowledge and geological interpretation. They remind us that Earth's history is vast, and that what appears ordinary at first glance can conceal extraordinary complexity. Small, seemingly mundane objects can carry questions that challenge the boundaries of science, history, and imagination. Each sphere is a tiny paradox, formed in rock billions of years old, yet shaped in a way that resonates with patterns we instinctively recognize as deliberate. Their presence asks us to consider the relationship between natural processes and apparent design, and whether our current understanding of ancient Earth is complete. As we examine the Klerksdorp spheres, we are left with a series of unanswered questions. Are they simply geological curiosities, remarkable coincidences in mineral growth? Or could they be traces of something deeper, evidence of processes or activity not yet fully understood by modern science? Do they hint at a history that predates our known civilizations? Or are they natural anomalies magnified by perception and imagination? In their smooth metallic surfaces and enigmatic forms, the spheres hold no instructions, no inscriptions, yet they communicate across billions of years, a silent, puzzling presence that continues to invite wonder, study, and speculation. In the quiet, dusty mines of South Africa, and in the careful observations of scientists around the world, the Klerksdorp spheres endure as both artifact and mystery. They challenge us to reconcile scale, time, and form, to question assumptions about what is possible, and to imagine what secrets may still lie hidden in Earth's ancient rocks. Their story remains unwritten, their purpose unresolved. Yet in their enigmatic precision, they continue to captivate, to puzzle, and to inspire reflection on the mysteries that persist in our world. Deep in the sun-baked sands of Egypt's Saqqara necropolis, amid tombs, temples, and funerary complexes that span millennia, lies a small artifact that continues to intrigue scholars and enthusiasts alike. Known simply as the Saqqara bird, this delicate object, no larger than a modern hand, was discovered in 1898 during excavations of a tomb dating to the First Dynasty, roughly 2000 BCE. At first glance, it seems nothing more than a carved wooden figure, its form reminiscent of a bird in flight. Yet its subtle design, balanced curves, and aerodynamic lines hint at something far more enigmatic than a mere decorative figurine. The artifact is crafted from sycamore wood, carved with smooth precision, and finished with simple, elegant wings tapering to a point. Unlike typical depictions of birds in ancient Egyptian art, it lacks the conventional hieroglyphic stylizations and does not appear to serve any purely symbolic function. Its proportions are unusual. The fuselage is elongated, the tail fin sharply angled, and the wings exhibit a slight curvature suggestive of lift. Even in the dim light of the museum display, one can sense an intentionality in the form, an understanding of balance and motion that seems at odds with our assumptions about ancient craftsmanship. The Saqqara bird was discovered in a tomb filled with ritual objects, amulets, and everyday items intended to accompany the deceased into the afterlife. Yet it is unlike the other artifacts. While amulets symbolize protection and small figurines represent offerings or servants, this bird evokes a different kind of curiosity. Could it have been a mere toy, an object of play for a child? Or does it reflect knowledge of aerodynamics, an understanding of flight far ahead of its time? Some researchers have pointed out that the shape bears a surprising resemblance to a modern glider, complete with a slight dihedral angle in the wings, an arrangement that provides stability in flight. Experimental tests have only deepened the mystery. Replicas of the Saqqara bird, carefully carved to match the original, have been thrown and glided short distances. Observers note that, while rudimentary, the object does indeed exhibit gliding behavior, maintaining balance in the air in a manner that suggests the original craftsman understood principles of lift and stability, at least intuitively. But, if this was the intention, why was the bird placed in a tomb rather than tested for practical use? And how did artisans of that era achieve such precise balance without formal knowledge of aerodynamics or the mathematics of flight? Mainstream Egyptologists often interpret the Saqqara bird as a ceremonial or symbolic object, possibly a representation of the soul or a protective amulet for the deceased. Birds were common symbols in Egyptian art, associated with the Ba, the spiritual aspect of a person. Yet the artifact's unusual aerodynamic qualities seem to transcend simple symbolism. Some scholars argue that it could have been a toy designed to glide through the air, perhaps demonstrating early experimentation with flight in a playful or educational context. Others suggest that the unusual proportions might simply be artistic stylization, a coincidence magnified by modern perception. The artifact's context in Saqqara is particularly striking. The necropolis is a landscape of innovation and sophistication, home to the famous step pyramid of Djoser and numerous tombs filled with technical ingenuity, from advanced masonry to symbolic engineering. In this environment, the Saqqara bird takes on a layered significance. It exists simultaneously as an artistic creation, a potential experimental device, and a symbolic object. It embodies the intersection of imagination, observation, and craftsmanship, a small enigma that speaks to the curiosity and skill of its creators. Speculative theories have flourished around the artifact. Some fringe researchers have proposed that it represents evidence of knowledge of powered flight in ancient Egypt, an idea that, if true, would radically reshape our understanding of technological history. Others suggest it could be a demonstration tool, used to study gliding principles in birds or to teach concepts related to balance and motion. While these theories are intriguing, they remain unverified, and the Saqqara bird's true purpose continues to evade definitive explanation. The craftsmanship itself offers subtle clues. The wings are precisely angled, the tail fin is proportionally significant, and the center of mass is carefully positioned to allow a balanced glide. Unlike a rough carving or symbolic representation, this artifact exhibits an intentionality that is both deliberate and sophisticated. It is an example of observation, an ancient artisan translating the dynamics of the natural world into a wooden form. Yet we are left to wonder whether this was purely imaginative, experimental, or intended for ritualized practice. In the quiet halls of Saqqara, the artifact retains an aura of mystery. It challenges our assumptions about the limits of ancient knowledge and invites reflection on the ingenuity of civilizations long predating modern science. Small though it may be, the Saqqara bird speaks volumes about human curiosity, the desire to observe, to experiment, and to translate understanding into tangible form. Its presence in a tomb reminds us that even objects intended for symbolic or ceremonial purposes can carry unexpected technical sophistication. As we hold the image of the bird in our minds, gliding silently above the sands of Egypt, we are confronted with questions that remain unanswered. Was this object a simple toy, a ceremonial representation, or an experimental tool demonstrating early principles of flight? Did the artisans of ancient Egypt intuitively grasp concepts we associate only with modern aerodynamics? And what other insights into technology, observation, and experimentation have been lost to the sands of time, waiting silently to be rediscovered? The Sakara bird endures as a testament to the subtle brilliance of human creativity, an artifact that bridges imagination, art, and the unexplained. In its quiet elegance, it challenges us to consider how much knowledge might have existed in the ancient world, and how many mysteries of skill and ingenuity remain hidden, waiting for the careful eye of discovery to bring them to light. In the rolling plains of southern Idaho, beneath layers of silt and clay deposited by ancient floods and glacial activity, lies a small artifact whose discovery sent shockwaves through both archaeology and the imagination of the public. Known as the Nampa figurine, it is a tiny, human-shaped clay figure, measuring just over an inch in height. Yet its significance far outweighs its size. Unlike the carefully curated treasures of Egypt or the monumental stones of Baalbek, this object was unearthed in a practical, almost mundane setting. A well drilled by local workers in 1889 near the town of Nampa. But what it revealed challenged conventional timelines of human habitation in North America. The figurine is composed of a fine, reddish clay, shaped into a human form with a head, torso, and rudimentary limbs. Its features are minimal, yet the posture and proportions suggest deliberate craftsmanship. Embedded in the clay are traces of iron oxide, giving it a subtle reddish hue, and the surface is carefully smoothed, showing that it was not a hastily formed object. What makes the Nampa figurine particularly intriguing is not merely its form, but the context of its discovery. It was recovered from a depth of approximately 320 feet, within a layer of compacted gravel estimated at the time to be hundreds of thousands of years old. This depth, combined with the apparent age of the surrounding strata, created immediate controversy. Conventional archaeological understanding holds that human presence in North America did not occur until much more recently, tens of thousands, at most, not hundreds of thousands of years ago. The implication of a human-made artifact at such depth challenges established timelines, forcing us to ask, could humans or human-like beings have been present far earlier than we currently understand? Or might there be another explanation for this remarkable find? When first examined, the figurine was treated with both fascination and skepticism. Mainstream interpretations suggested it could have been displaced, introduced into older strata through natural processes such as flooding, sediment displacement, or drilling contamination. Critics argued that the depths involved made it improbable that the artifact was genuinely contemporaneous with the gravel deposits. Yet the meticulous excavation records indicate that the object was carefully documented, and the surrounding matrix appeared consistent with the claimed depth. This tension between evidence and expectation has fueled debate for over a century. Experimental analyses of the figurine reveal subtleties in its creation. The form is clearly shaped by human hands, with attention to proportion and posture, and evidence of firing suggests knowledge of basic ceramic techniques. Unlike naturally formed stones or concretionary shapes, the Nampa figurine demonstrates intention. Someone deliberately molded clay into a miniature representation of the human form. But who, when, and why remains elusive. Could it have been a ritual object, a toy, or a symbolic effigy? Or does it hint at a far earlier culture that left no other traces, its existence hidden beneath layers of geological time? The Idaho landscape itself offers clues and further complexity. The region is rich in ancient sediments, shaped by glacial runoff, catastrophic floods, and volcanic activity. Objects embedded within these layers are often shifted, fragmented, or destroyed, making the preservation of a small clay figurine all the more remarkable. That it survived suggests either fortuitous conditions or deliberate care in its deposition. Was it placed intentionally in the well or merely coincidentally preserved during the formation of the strata? And if the figurine does date to the deeper geological layers, what does that say about the timeline of human or proto-human activity in North America? Speculative theories abound. Some suggest that the Nampa figurine may be evidence of an unknown ancient population, far earlier than the Clovis culture, which is traditionally considered the first widespread human presence in North America. Others propose more radical interpretations, envisioning lost civilizations or migratory groups whose traces have been erased by time. Yet each hypothesis confronts the same challenge. The evidence is tantalizing but scarce, a single object whose full story is obscured by centuries of sediment and millennia of speculation. The figurine also prompts reflection on the nature of discovery itself. Small artifacts, easily overlooked, can challenge entire frameworks of understanding. The Nampa figurine reminds us that history is not a straight line, and that even in regions extensively studied, anomalies can surface that force reconsideration of human chronology, adaptation, and migration. Its existence encourages both humility and curiosity, highlighting the limits of what we know and the vastness of what may yet be uncovered. Holding the image of the Nampa figurine in one's mind, we are drawn to questions both practical and profound. Was it a simple expression of art, a symbolic effigy, or evidence of a culture far older than accepted timelines suggest? Could it have survived through geological coincidence, or does it point to a chapter of human history that has been largely lost to time? Each of these questions lingers unresolved as the artifact silently communicates across centuries, challenging our assumptions and inviting wonder. In the quiet fields of Idaho, amid layers of gravel, clay, and ancient sediment, the Nampa figurine endures as a small but powerful testament to the enduring mysteries of the past. Its diminutive form conceals a weighty enigma, the possibility that human hands were shaping clay far earlier than we thought, leaving traces that defy explanation. In this unassuming artifact, we are reminded that the past is not fully known, that hidden within Earth's strata may lie objects capable of rewriting what we understand about human history, and that sometimes the smallest finds carry the most profound questions. In the sun-warmed hills of southern Crete, beneath layers of earth that have borne witness to millennia of human activity, lies a mystery that has puzzled scholars, linguists, and cryptographers for over a century. The Phaistos disk, discovered in 1908 during excavations at the ancient Minoan palace of Phaistos, is a small clay artifact, roughly 6 inches in diameter, yet its significance transcends its modest size. Its surface is inscribed with 241 distinct symbols, arranged in a spiral from the edge toward the center, stamped with such precision that it suggests both a careful system of communication and a method of production remarkably sophisticated for its era. The disk's discovery occurred in a context rich with history. Phaistos itself was a hub of Minoan civilization, a society renowned for its art, architecture, and complex social organization. Among the ruins of palaces, storerooms, and ceremonial spaces, the disk emerged as something entirely unique, a compact, enigmatic record, unlike the frescoes, pottery, or linear scripts commonly found in the region. Its spiral inscription draws the eye inward, compelling observers to follow each stamped symbol with both curiosity and reverence. Yet, as the fingers trace the symbols, the meaning remains elusive, a puzzle carved in clay that resists interpretation. The symbols themselves are intricate and varied, representing human figures, animals, tools, plants, and abstract shapes. Unlike Linear A and Linear B, other scripts of the Minoan world, the Phaistos disk is stamped rather than incised, implying the use of movable stamps, perhaps the earliest known example of a printing technique. This method raises questions about the technological knowledge of the Minoans. Did they conceive of a standardized system for reproducing information, or was this disk a one-of-a-kind artifact, an experiment in communication that left no other trace? Attempts to decipher the disk have spanned decades, drawing linguists, archaeologists, and cryptographers into a web of speculation. Some scholars suggest it represents a syllabary, an early form of written language. Others propose that it is a ritual calendar or a hymn, a symbolic record rather than a practical text. Yet despite countless analyses, no consensus has emerged. Each proposed translation is met with counter-arguments, highlighting the disk's resistance to conventional interpretation. It is both tantalizingly familiar, a system of symbols implying meaning, and profoundly alien, a message lost to time. The disk's uniqueness amplifies its mystery. No other artifact has been found with the same symbols, and its precise purpose remains uncertain. Was it a record of religious or ceremonial significance? Could it have been a tool for accounting or communication between Minoan officials? Or was it a symbolic object intended to convey meaning in a context no longer accessible to us? The absence of comparative material makes every hypothesis speculative, yet the careful arrangement of symbols, imprinted with exacting precision, demonstrates intentionality and design that cannot be ignored. Speculative theories have flourished around the Phaistos disk. Some fringe interpretations suggest it contains instructions for navigation, astronomical data, or even esoteric knowledge encoded in a ritualistic language. Others propose it may represent a lost proto-writing system, a precursor to more developed scripts that emerged elsewhere in the Mediterranean. While none of these ideas can be confirmed, their persistence underscores the disk's ability to captivate, provoking questions about the sophistication of Minoan society and the scope of human ingenuity in the Bronze Age. The artifact itself speaks to a culture attuned to symbolism, technology, and record-keeping. The stamping technique implies a level of standardization and repeatability, suggesting that the disk was not a casual or isolated creation. The spiral format, drawing the eye inward, may hold symbolic meaning as well, reflecting ideas about time, ritual, or cosmology. Yet, despite these clues, the disk remains mute on its ultimate purpose, its language untranslatable, its message inaccessible. As with other enigmatic artifacts we have explored, from the Nampa figurine to the Saqqara bird, the Phaistos disk challenges assumptions about chronology, culture, and the transmission of knowledge. It reminds us that ancient societies were not simply precursors to modern civilization, but were capable of innovation, experimentation, and symbolic expression in ways that continue to surprise us. The disk is a small, fragile object, yet it carries the weight of centuries of unanswered questions, a testament to human curiosity and the limits of our understanding. Standing before the Phaistos disk, one cannot help but feel the tension between discovery and mystery. Here is an artifact meticulously created, yet its meaning is lost. Its symbols suggest communication, yet they remain silent. Its existence implies knowledge, yet that knowledge is inaccessible. What secrets did the Minoans intend to preserve in this spiral of clay? And what might this singular artifact reveal about a civilization that, like many we have encountered in this journey, continues to challenge the boundaries of our comprehension? The Phaistos disk endures as both artifact and enigma, inviting reflection on the ways humans encode meaning, preserve knowledge, and attempt to communicate across time. It is a reminder that history is not a straightforward narrative, but a complex tapestry punctuated by moments of brilliance and mystery. And as we consider its spiral of symbols, we are left with an open question. How much of the past, like the disk itself, remains undeciphered, waiting silently beneath layers of earth, culture, and time, ready to challenge our assumptions about what humanity has known and what it has lost?